Welcome to Sisflix, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sisflix are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
How are you doing?
Are you quite well?
Did you survive the carriage scene of 1815 in 2024?
I have, and I know that I'm alone in that. I'm the last survivor. I'm the final girl.
Y'all, just wow. All right, you're being nonchalant. How many times did you watch it, though?
Like in the show?
No.
Oh, generally?
Not in the show. How
like
many times have you watched the carriage scene?
Like 5 times, maybe?
Wow, you're strong.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Strong.
I have restraint.
Okay, you are. Okay. Because the way I've seen this shit like 20 times.
Yeah, you're not alone in that. That's more normal than me.
Y'all, like, in the words of the most romantic Colin Bridgerton, I'm not going to be cavalier about this. Is it not tiring to remain cavalier about the one thing in life that holds any genuine meaning?
The carriage scene?
Don't worry, sisters. We are going to do our recap, Sisflix style. I just need to have some girl talk. I got to get some stuff out of my chest. Out of my chest? Do you get things out of your chest?
I'm leaving that in. And I need you guys to know I'm the editor and I will leave that in. Paola's got to get stuff out of her chest.
Take this shit out of my chest.
It's next to her heart. It's causing some health issues. Paola needs to get it out of her chest.
All right, Missy. Do you have a favorite part?
Of the 4 episodes?
Yes, of the 4 episodes. Fuck it.
You know what? I really like Lord Debling.
He was a sweetie patootie. He was a
sweetie patootie.
He was a sweetie patootie.
He was such a sweetie patootie. I really liked. So there were moments in this season so far of some representation of different abilities, differently abled people. Mm-hmm. And so we had one lord who is in a wheelchair, and Penelope goes and like gossips with him by one of the refreshment tables at one of the balls. How about you, sister?
Oh, it was definitely one. It was definitely one of my favorites. I mean, I'm a fan of the show. I loved it, period. I am enjoying this season so far a lot. Colin and Penelope's story is one of my favorites from the books. Finally seeing it come to a head is my favorite. It was the declarations for me. It was the declarations for me from Luke. From the beginning, when he does like his little mini apology and he's like, I seek you out at every social assembly. And to go from that to he's feeling the total inability to stop thinking about her, dreaming of her, and in fact preferring sleep because that is the one place where he can find her. I was like, that shit was like
life-giving.
It's so swoony. It's just so swoony. You know what? That's what I'll call this season, swoony.
Anytime someone says swoony, I hear it. Oh my God.
I know who you hear. You hear Prince Henry.
I was like, you are going to end me when I say this. I hear like,
oh yes.
Oh, In the Mood for Love. It's the swooniest movie ever.
Movie ever. That's what I'll call this season, is swoony. Season 1 definitely has this heat about it, right? You have these 2 young people with the pretend dating and like there's a lot of sexual tension. Season 2, the heat was like in the slow burn, just the tension between the characters. And then here, like, there's this friendship that's already established. So it's like very sweet and charming and funny, like comical at times, right? They definitely brought the rom-com element. And it works for their story because they're friends and light with each other and fun with each other. It's like the declarations, the pining, and like that yearning.
Pining, longing, wanting, yearning, aching.
Monday through Friday, baby.
That's my work day. Mondays we pine. Tuesdays we long. Wednesdays we want.
Thursday, May 16th, we swooned. I swooned. And the way this man's eyes short-circuited when that woman was like, but we're just friends.
I did love viewing his disappointment, and that is because I'm a bitch.
We all wanted that. I would argue that we wanted more of that.
My husband will attest to this, okay? Anytime Colin and Penelope were interacting on screen, I would shout at the screen, "Suffer! I need him to suffer!"
Oh, no.
Ryan would just look at me like, "Dude, fucking relax." And I'm like, "I need him to be in pain!" Like, he didn't suffer enough, if you're asking me, but fine, whatever, I'll take it.
A lot of people agree with you, and it's not over yet. Shit's gonna go down.
It's not
like,
over.
Some shit's gonna go down. But it was like how in a split second, every time he friend zoned her in the past 3 years flashed right before his eyes.
I wanted more. I wanted him to feel that more.
And like he immediately questioned all of his life's choices.
Sounds like he needed to suffer.
And the way Nuke Luton portrayed all of that in just a flicker of the eye, in just like a clench of the jaw, you were like, oh shit. He thinks she doesn't love him back.
Mm-hmm.
And our girl, she held out. She held out for like 0.36 seconds with the look. It's the brow, bro. I think that's what it is. Because you know what? Luke Newton, I can appreciate that he's a very handsome man. There is something in the furrow of the brow. And the way he looks so intently. Shit.
Goofy.
And in that same breath, can I just mention something?
Please. That's why we're here.
The hands through the hair.
I don't know. That like did feel weird to me. I guess like watching them in interviews and stuff and watching them talk about that scene makes it make a little bit more sense because they're like, Penelope is like capital V virgin. There was something like weird about how she like touched his face at his hair. Like his head is going backward almost in a way that like looks painful. And her hand is just like not quite through the hair, but just like hovering above it. I don't know. But again, that's me watching as like a heathen, as an absolute disaster and a mess in the eyes of God. Because all I wanted was for her to get those fingers in his hair and just tug. Sharp tug of hair.
I'm pretty sure we're going to get that. I wasn't focused on Penelope's hand. I was focused on this man's face. Because...
Oh, he's had his hair pulled.
The feralness, the ferality of this man when this woman put her hands through his hair. Take that man, walk him home, show him where he eats. He drinks when you say he drinks and rub his belly after. Like the way this man just wanted her to take him.
One of our friends messaged us and goes, "Walk him like a dog."
Walk him like a dog. This is where you eat. This is when you drink.
I'm fucking weak. I have no further comment. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Oh, the feralness, I'm making up words now, of Bridgerton men is unmatched.
As it should be. Look at the women they're up against, as it should be.
What Anthony is to the scent of lilies, Colin is to cake. And he eats his cake with 2 fingers, by the way. Just thought you should note that.
I think other people should note that aren't me.
With all of that said, for me, he made up for all his cringy, rakish behavior. He is forgiven. With the end of episode 2 and the end of episode 4, I can overlook your cringy, rakish behavior, Colin.
That's so great.
How did you feel about rakish Colin?
It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't for me.
I don't think anybody really enjoyed seeing this cringy, flirty, overtly flirty Colin, right? Because I feel like Colin's always been charming and funny and like he's always gotten along with the ladies.
The winking was a lot for me.
It was one wink and it was enough. For me to never see him wink again.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was like he winked like an 8-year-old who's been practicing in the mirror. They didn't need to do that. I wish we were a video podcast so you guys can see Nadhya's face.
I'm elated that we're not, if I'm being honest with you.
Oh my God. But I definitely expect some difference, right? Like some upgrade in swagger. The man just toured the world.
He was fucking.
He did the George Villiers, went to Paris, came back educated.
Sure.
You know, and he wants to show the ladies what he's learned. And I'm for that. I get that. I'm with that storyline. You know what he didn't find in Paris, though? Chapstick. If you're going to be this rakish and this charming...
Moisturize your lips.
Please moisturize your lips.
Nah, I feel you.
Please. You know what he did find in Paris, though?
Pussy.
Nah, he found that in the carriage in England. What do you mean?
I'm dead and incredibly uncomfortable.
You know what he did find in Paris, though?
What?
Un salón dominicano. Did you see this man's Rolo curls?
He looked like he belonged on the cover of a salsa album from the 70s.
He looked like the posters from like 1987 that they put up in the salon because this man's curls were curling. I mean, they look good though, so I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying. I know a Rolo set when I see one.
Yeah, it's so messy. In the first episode, it does look like he's wearing a wig. Maybe his hair wasn't the right length when they were filming, but it was something uncanny valley about his look in episode 1. I did
hear that they had to go back
and
reshoot some stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe by then he'd already cut his hair.
Yeah, puede ser.
So they had to maybe put him in the wig to keep the continuity. It's because they had to go back and refilm some scenes, which I heard were like some of the funnier scenes because apparently Jess Brownell ended up seeing him in a play that he's doing and saw a bit of his comedic talent. And so she decided to bring him back and do a bit more of that rom-com-y stuff for the show.
Oh, that's fun.
Penelope's glow up has been my absolute favorite though. The way they finally showcase her beauty, because this chick is beautiful.
She is. Nicola Coughlan
Flawless,
is so pretty.
Porcelain skin, beautiful bright blue eyes, these full lips, high cheek. Like she's just gorgeous. Yeah. And so the way that hair and makeup tried to hide that for the past 2 seasons, I mean, they did a good job of toning her beauty down. Now they're showcasing it at 1,000% and she looks phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Do you know that they use her same wig from seasons 1 and 2?
Do they really?
They just styled her different and they had her hair down for most of the season. It looks so seductive, which is exactly what you're supposed to get from that. She's ready to be seduced. Even her dresses, girl, that bosom, they cut her dresses now and tailored them to fit her figure. Before in past seasons, they would do the Ampere waist dress, which would start at her widest point of her chest.
Yeah.
And so she would look like a tent.
Yeah.
Now they tailored her dress at her waist. The girlies were up there. It looks stunning on her.
All the dresses this season look really good. I mean, they're not super contemporaneous. And I think that's something that becomes fairly obvious, right? Like the costumes this season in general are quite a bit more out there than the previous seasons.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's whatever. Like Paola said, we're watching a fantasy and there are so many other storytelling elements that are portrayed through the costuming, the hair and the makeup. It's like, of course they're going to go big, extravagant. Dude, the amount of money that they have poured into this marketing campaign for season 3, like...
And it's working.
Yeah, and it's working. It is the highest viewership of a new premiere on Netflix, I believe. And it also beat the first 2 seasons of Bridgerton. And I think it beat Queen Charlotte.
And this is just the first part.
Yeah.
There are people who are waiting for the second part to come out to be able to watch it in one sitting. Mm-hmm. So the amount of viewership you're seeing is not even everybody who's interested in watching Bridgerton. A lot of people are waiting for that second release.
Yeah.
They've always done a great job of like towing the line in period costuming to keep the show feeling like fresh. Mm-hmm. Me as a period piece lover, it did start straying a bit too far for me where I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Right. Where it kind of takes you out of it.
It took me out of it sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's such a beautiful art to be able to tell a story through costuming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's one of my favorite parts about movies and shows. And the costumes this season, I feel like they added so much more dimensions to the costuming. Like for the past 2 seasons, we've seen it a lot with Queen Charlotte's wigs, Cressida's wigs, right? Where they take on this dimension and their storytelling in the wigs. This season, they took it a step further and just made the costumes and the hair just more performative overall. Like literally performative. There's a wig with animatronic swans. Obviously, Bridgerton loves to use symbolism. Swans symbolizing love and transformation, key to our story. But also, in a lot of Cressida Cowper's outfits, she had, like, to me, this swan-like appearance, this bird-like appearance. And that was confirmed by the costuming department. And I was like, oh, shit. And I tied it back to, like, Queen Charlotte's swan wig. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's any storytelling in that. And apparently there is. And I can't wait to talk about that and get more into it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they upped the ante for everyone. The Featheringtons looked good. Still in their Featherington colors, but I feel like they looked amazing. Their dresses looked amazing on them. The girls looked beautiful.
Which I like. I mean, Philippa is like the least abhorrent Featherington woman. Like, she's probably the most medium. Yeah. I really liked how Philippa's styled. I think she looked really, like, it sounds so creepy to say, but like, understanding the plot line of what the elder Featherington sisters are dealing with in the first half of season 3, I feel like they make her look very womanly, right? Like romantic, enticing. They're both supposed to be aiming for fertility, which is like creepy, yes. But some of that becomes evident in their styling. The roundness, the fullness, the curves of their hair, of their dresses, of all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Giving you like a very, like you said, like this fertile, womanly view of them. So now that I'm in horny jail and we've gotten all our big thoughts out of the way, you think you're ready to dive into our Bridgerton season 3 part 1 recap. Today we're doing episodes 1 and 2.
All right, guys, let's get into it. So if you guys have been doing your homework and listening to our recaps, you know what the fuck is up. Bridgerton, season 3, released May 2024 on Netflix. Worldwide, baby. Mr. Worldwide. Easter egg? I think so. It will be released in 2 parts. Part 1 was released May 16th. Part 2 will be releasing on June 13th. It feels like sometimes this is a thing that Netflix just does with popular shows because they think it keeps people engaged. I think they do it to build the ante online, which is honestly where a lot of people will get up the juice to decide to watch a new show that they haven't seen before. Twitter was a huge vehicle for me watching a bunch of different shit when I was on it. Instagram, seeing fan edits and shit like that. And what does 3 weeks between drops give you? It gives you 3 weeks of fan edits to see all over your fucking Instagram Discover, if that's a thing that your algorithm has tailored to you. It wasn't my favorite. I much prefer when the entire season drops at once. I also feel like the story is being split up into 2 distinct parts where each part could have been its own season. But the Bridgerton structure is such that one season is dedicated to the love story of each Bridgerton child. So like they're not going to make 2 seasons dedicated to Pauline, as much as some people would love that, I'm sure.
We've had 2 seasons of Pauline already.
I mean, I guess, yeah, you're right.
Let's get this going.
The first 4 episodes of season 3, I'm like, this could be 8 episodes. This could be like a very well-paced, slow build of one kind of climactic experience, which is the end of episode 4. I'm being very good about keeping myself away from spoilers, but from what I've heard about the second half of season 3, that sounds like it could also be its entire own season of well-paced conflict.
Yes, there's just so much happening this season. It felt rushed, I guess, maybe because you as a viewer know you only have 4 episodes to absorb everything that's happening, but also this is the season with the most storylines going on at the same time.
And we're elevating characters that used to be minor characters, giving them more screen time. So now you're kind of like, I feel like I haven't spent anywhere near enough time with Colin and Penelope.
Yeah, I felt that. I wanted to spend more time with them. But again, I think maybe they felt they can do that because we have spent time with them before.
Yeah, it's possible.
So maybe they felt like, well, they already have a backstory. So maybe we can focus on these other stories that are also going on and elevate these other characters because we already know how Colin and Penelope came to be where they're at right now.
That's true.
In season 1 and 2, you have characters that are meeting each other. And then it's not until the 2nd or 3rd episode that they're starting to get romantically involved or they start realizing they have feelings for each other or like when that tension starts to build. So we've already gotten that time with Colin and Penelope. We're at a point as Pauline fans, we want to see Colin finally see Penelope the way she's been seeing him and get them together.
It's almost like we didn't need to see her pining after Colin at all. We needed makeover montage. We needed the shitty interactions with her sisters and her mom. We needed the shitty interactions with Eloise, where their friendship is not what it used to be. We didn't need like anything further between her and Colin on her behalf. We needed that exclusively from Colin. And it feels like we get snapshots of that. Like it doesn't feel like we get as deep into his mind as you get into Anthony, as you get into the Duke. And honestly, like, I mean, I know it starts to get formulaic, but like Episode 3, no flashback?
I know.
No childhood flashback?
Where's the flashback, Bridgerton? It's come on, 2 seasons in a row we get a flashback. Episode 3, that's what happens.
I know.
But instead of a flashback, they call back to like when they first met.
Right. In a discussion, not visually.
Right. But I think a lot of fans wanted to kind of see that.
And as we all know, especially at this point, we've been fucking talking about it enough. This season focuses on Colin and Penelope's love story that is written about in Julia Quinn's book, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So Romancing Mr. Bridgerton is actually number 4 in the sequence of Bridgerton books, where the first 2 seasons followed the prescribed order of the books, beginning with Daphne, going on to Antony. This mixed it up where the 3rd season was actually meant to be Benedict's story, a book called An Offer from a Gentleman, which people can contest whether that was a very gentlemanly book as much as they want. And Romancing Mr. Bridgerton comes after that, because something that we've mentioned, I think, in one of our recaps before is that Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, the book, happens like 10 years after the events of Daphne and Simon. So Penelope is 27. Colin is like 31 or 32.
She's 27 and like properly a spinster.
Deeply a spinster.
And she has like no hope to like marry. Like she's set in her spinsterhood.
And she's frightened.
Yeah.
Don't you dare judge me, Lizzie. Don't you dare judge me. And Colin, he's just a guy, because men don't have the same pressure, right? So he's just a guy who's been traveling on and off for about a decade.
The same way we're introduced to the Duke in season 1, where he's like a rake because he traverses across the country. That's the perception you get of Colin a little bit. Less so because he's like a nice guy. But Lady Whistledown writes about him in the book, and it's like, oh, he just rakes across the country. He's never in the ton. He leaves for months at a time, comes back, hangs out for a little bit, leaves again.
Good for him. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, with 2 leads that are already known to us, it's not like previous seasons where we're meeting a mystery romantic lead that will attach themselves to a Bridgerton sibling. We've known Colin and Penelope this entire time.
And I think that's why the new showrunner wanted to bring up their story, because she mentions that she didn't think fans would want to see Penelope continue to pine over Colin for another season. And I get that. But I also feel like they could have maybe done a season where Colin's not really in it that much because he's away traveling. And then when he does come back from his travels a season later, this change that he has makes more sense. Mm-hmm. Because it almost felt jarring going from last season Colin to this season Colin. A season in between that, maybe where we would have gotten Benedict's story, I feel would have eased us into this idea of how much Colin has changed.
I agree. I would have liked a little bit more growth from Colin. Again, it's like you wouldn't even have needed to see Penelope. Like, you know where she's at. As far as I'm aware, Bridgerton has been renewed through season 4. So as much as we're like Bridgerton, 8 siblings, 8 seasons, the shit's not eternal, and they're on Netflix. And to be perfectly honest, we don't know where planet Earth is going to be in 5 years. So who's to say that we'll even have Netflix to watch Bridgerton on? Who's to say any of us will be around to know? So like, let's pretend after season 2, they have 2 more seasons to play with. And let's pretend that the show, for whatever reason, ends after that. I could see the urgency of the new showrunner wanting to highlight Colin and Penelope's story, because Penelope's a popular character, and she ends season 2, as you've heard from our recap, in a tumultuous way. Where does she end up? Like, that's kind of the urgency that you get at the end of season 2. And then you're kind of like, and season 4 can be whoever.
And another thing about the success of this season, here, Penelope's our main girl. I feel like Colin's almost like the secondary character for us.
Yeah.
We have the Bridgerton, Colin, and then we have Penelope / Lady Whistledown. And that's culminating like these 2 sides of this world that we're watching.
And the stakes have kind of already been set. We know how big and controversial Lady Whistledown is as a figure in the ton. We know how many people want her fucking head on a spike.
Well, specifically Colin, though.
He blames Lady Whistledown for his relationship with Marina Thompson not working out, in spite of the fact that Marina Thompson was super duper pregnant, not with 1, but 2 babies.
And also for writing about Eloise.
Which, of course, behind the scenes, we all know why that happened. But outwardly, to anybody in the Bridgerton family, they're like, shit, Eloise really needs to like lay low because she fucked it all up last season. And here we are. We know these characters. We've seen them grow. They're pining. Whether the pining is mutual, we will learn in the first half of season 3. So for the new season, we have showrunner Jess Brownell. So Jess Brownell has worked as a writer on seasons 1 and 2. She's also worked as a writer for the Shondaland production company since 2015. She's written on Scandal, Inventing Anna. However, she was not the showrunner for seasons 1 and 2. The showrunner was another writer named Chris Van Duzen, who was also credited as the creator of the show. Chris Van Duzen has now gone to a producer instead of showrunner. And some of the main writers are Chris Van Duzen and Julia Quinn. Julia Quinn, obviously the author of the source material, the Bridgerton books, all of the novels. The main directors this season so far are Trisha Brock, who directed the first 2 episodes and also directed the first 2 episodes in season 2. So the music is composed by Chris Bowers, who comes back and composes an incredible score. I mean, continuing the work that he's done in seasons 1 and 2. And we have our first original song written for Bridgerton called All I Want, written by the 9-time Grammy nominee Roger Shayahed, who also composed Doja Cat's Kiss Me More. And the new song All I Want is performed by musical artist Tori Kelly, who I'm almost positive was a competitor on American Idol and has cultivated her own musical career ever since. So that's pretty cool. There are a ton of different tracks. We've talked about this a little bit like in our stories on Instagram. A bunch of people have messaged us about this. In no particular order, we see orchestral covers of Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever, BTS's Dynamite, Sia's Cheap Thrills. That's a bop and a half. And Nick Jonas's Jealous. Let's go. That song is a bop. Let's fucking go. And the fact that you could take Nick Jonas and Luke Newton as Colin Bridgerton, probably interchange them, nobody would notice.
Honestly, though.
Colin Bridgerton's low-key a Jonas brother. It's okay.
The 3 of them. Have you seen memes where they try to pick like which Jonas brother they would be? And I think before this season, like maybe you would give like Colin like, or maybe he's like Kevin. Now that we've seen this season, we're like, nah, he's Nick. He went solo, went worldwide, came back, showing us some things.
If only he too married Priyanka Chopra. So we were talking about the costume design earlier, how it's gotten a little bit bigger, a little bit more grandiose, if possible, right? Because seasons 1 and 2 had such incredible costume, makeup, and hair artistry to begin with, but this season has definitely taken it to the next level. That team is made up of John Glazer. So John Glazer has been featured in like a handful of like behind the scenes videos and featurettes that have been floating all around the internet, where he kind of walks you through some of the important looks and ideas behind the outfits in season 3. And that's been so fucking cool.
So interesting. I love this shit. I eat it up.
Oh, I love this shit. It's so fucking cool. So John Glazer, John Norster, Sophie Canale, and Ellen Mirajnik. And as we discussed, you know, in our recaps of the previous seasons, like something really cool about the majority of these costume designers is that they really hadn't worked so much in period dramas or period pieces in general. And so they bring such a fresh perspective. And I think that's part of why the costumes are so elevated for season 3 and why they're so much more intense and symbolic rather than contemporaneous to the time period. The production designer, Allison Gartshaw, took over from production designer from seasons 1 and 2, Will Hughes Jones. And honestly, I think so far from what we've seen, great job, because you can't tell that there's an overt difference in the production design quality or consistency between seasons 1, 2, and 3. That person really picked up where Will Hughes Jones left off, which is cool. All right, let's get into this motherfucking scorecard, yo. Paola, is this a straight or queer love story?
Straight as heck so far.
As heck? What is this? Kids Bop? Straight as fuck.
What the fuck? Does it have source material? Yes, of course. We know this. We've been through this. Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series. The book that this specific season is based on is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is my favorite of the Bridgerton series. And as a book fan, they're sticking very closely to this book. They're adding things, obviously, the different characters. Most of the Bridgerton books really only focus on the two characters. So as a book fan, this first half of the season feels a bit like wish fulfillment. Like you're seeing a lot of scenes from the book play out almost verbatim. Stories by a woman. A matter of fact, if you think about it, you just read everybody who's kind of running the show right now. It's a big team of women.
Yeah.
Production company, Shondaland. Mm-hmm. Overall written and run by women and a diverse writing room as well.
This is not something that we've discussed overtly. Honestly, this is a little something that we discussed, take a shot, everyone, in our like recap, discussion breakdown or whatever of Red, White, and Royal Blue, where the intimate scenes in that movie felt very sensitive. They weren't less intimate. They just felt sensitive and attentive in a way that often a movie helmed by cisgendered heterosexual men don't typically feel.
It's very focused on the man's.
It's very focused on the event.
A male pleasure. Yeah.
The event. Like the main event.
The main thing.
Yeah. Whereas obviously Red, White, and Royal Blue came at it from the perspective of gay men, people who are not cisgendered, maybe people who are not gay or straight, bi, pansexual, like a vast spectrum of like sexual identity and gender identity. And you can tell, I think, from how delicately the intimacy in that movie was treated.
For sure.
I think with Bridgerton, it's very female gaze.
Oh, yeah.
You have so much delicacy and sensitivity layered into, like, the heat. And it's used intelligently, where you have these sex scenes from season 1 with Anthony, where it's kind of, like, insensitive. Like, he's there to get off. And he has feelings for, like, Sienna or whatever, but their relationship evolves from the fact that they have gotten together to have an affair. Then you have like other characters and how they interact intimately, and there are levels. There are characters who interact in a very sensitive, deliberate way, and then characters that interact, it's very rushed and it's very for the main event. And
right.
That is so evident in Bridgerton that I think the women being behind it and the way that like these scenes are choreographed, not focused on whatever, like I think that's why women love it so much, genuinely.
Absolutely. There's definitely a focus on the sensual aspect of sex and also on female pleasure. And we saw that in season 2 and we're seeing it here in season 3. And I think it's hugely significant, makes a big difference as to how you're receiving what you're watching. You're not even seeing that much skin.
A lot of the times you don't see the female protagonists fully nude, where other shows love that shit. Other shows love having a nude female protagonist.
And this is proof that you don't need that. It's literally in a touch, in a gaze. Those are the things that lead to a great sexual experience. When you're watching something from the male gaze, it's like you said, oh yeah, the big part.
The main event.
The big part, va bien. Okay, yeah, we done. No, it's the build. Bridgerton, from the jump, has been great at that build up.
Mm-hmm. What's the trope?
Ooh. My personal favorite, friends to lovers, baby. What would you say is your favorite friends to lovers?
I'm so much more an enemies to lovers person, but When Harry Met Sally is elite. It's just like almost the perfect movie.
Oh, it's elite in friends to lovers and in rom-com category.
Yes.
It's elites. For me, definitely When Harry Met Sally. I think Brown Sugar falls right behind that because it's a very similar story.
Because it's Harry Met Sally but black.
I mean, one day, but obviously that's so sad.
Yeah.
For this story in particular, for Colin and Penelope's season, you know what I think about? As far as rom-coms go, Drive Me Crazy with Adrienne Grenier and
Melissa Joan Hart, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Clarissa explaining it all.
There are childhood friends, neighbors. In high school, you have the popular one, not so popular one. And then they work together to make their exes jealous or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a makeover, but they make over the guy.
Because he's like kind of a stoner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they fall in love in the process. I love that movie. I feel like that movie's underrated. A rom-com that has actually been mentioned to inspire this specific season of Bridgerton is She's All That.
I could have told you that.
100%. Where you have the makeover scene The guy's trying to make her popular, and he falls in love in the process.
I think at least one of those will end up covered by Sysflix in the future because we have already covered 2. But moving on. Moving on to the back of the book summary.
You want this back of the book? Lacking in confidence, Penelope's attempts on the marriage mart fail spectacularly. Meanwhile, Colin has returned from his summer travels with a new look and a serious sense of swagger. He came with that wrist swaggle. But he's disheartened to realize that Penelope, the one person who always appreciated him as he was, is giving him the cold shoulder. Eager to win back her friendship, Colin offers to mentor Penelope in the ways of confidence to help her find a husband this season. But when his lessons start working a little too well, Colin must grapple with whether his feelings for Penelope are truly just friendly. Burr, 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 burr. Some general themes that are explored this season: friendship to lovers, baby, transformation, womanhood. We see this in the journey comically portrayed by the Featherington woman. Exposure in different ways. You can expect a lot of people and things to be exposed this season. Putting yourself out there, revealing secrets. Mirrors were used a lot throughout the promo. It's significant in the book, symbolizing all of these things, right? Mm-hmm. Escapism, or trying to escape something. We all know about Penelope's escapism. It's Lady Whistledown. But this season, we see her physically wanting to escape her circumstances and also trying to escape his Cressida. And we get more behind her backstory and motivation. A big theme that'll be good to pay attention to as you watch this season, and has been present for Colin's story specifically through past seasons, is that of Greek mythology. Specifically to Colin, the mythical tale of Eros and Psyche. Eros being Cupid, the god of desire and carnal love, and Psyche being the goddess of the soul. I find it super interesting, and I love the way that it ties to Penelope and to Colin. Now, in the story of Eros and Psyche, Psyche is the youngest of 3 daughters, and she was envied by her sisters and was also envied by Venus. Venus sends her son Eros, Cupid, to humiliate her, and he ends up falling in love with her. Instead, he visits her in secret and makes love to her in the dark of night. And Psyche, who was never meant to see his face, one day wakes up and he's sleeping next to her. And she brings a candle to his face, and in the attempt to see his face, burns him with the candle wax. He sees this as a betrayal, and he leaves her. Long story short, he eventually goes back to her because he loves her. So for me, Colin and Penelope are meant to represent Eros and Psyche almost directly. The way the story is going, I think, is going to play out just like that. Colin is going to feel betrayed. He's eventually going to forgive her. And the goddess Venus, who is jealous,
is Queen Charlotte.
So yeah, I love the idea of taking this mythological story of Eros and Psyche and quite literally letting it inspire this story between Colin and Penelope. And let me just say, the show has been playing on this theory since season 1. There's a scene in season 1 where Daphne talks to Colin in his room after the whole thing with Marina and the Lady Whistledown writes about her. Colin brings up another mythological story. So he's always been inspired by Greek mythology and heroes. And I won't get into that specific story because I think the story he talks about in that scene refers to Marina's story and foreshadows her future. Maybe we can get into that once we get into Philoise, which I hope happens. Anywho. Behind him on his desk is a statue of Cupid with his bow. And in the first episode of this season, he brings back a gift for Gregory of a bow and arrow. And as Gregory is playing with it, he points the bow directly at Colin. And later on, while Colin and Penelope are walking in the market, they walk past a number of statues and busts. And one of them happens to be the statue of Eros and Psyche, which actually Nadhya and I saw at the Met. We were just at the Met a couple of weeks ago, and we got to see that in person, which is kind of cool.
Making us sound so much more cultured than we actually are.
One more thing is that Psyche is usually portrayed with butterfly wings. And as we know, in the Bridgerton verse, butterflies represent the Featheringtons, the way that bees represent the Bridgertons. So I love how they tie all of that shit together. I eat that shit up.
They've been thinking. And as we all know, famously, Lord Featherington was killed by a butterfly. So it lines up.
Excuse me?
Exactly.
What?
I'm making a joke because the Bridgertons stay wearing bees, and it's like the fuck
Oh
wrong
my
with
God.
y'all.
You're an idiot.
Anyway, I didn't know a lot of that, sister. That's really, really cool.
I did a really deep dive.
I love it.
This was ADD at its finest.
Nah, when ADHD is a superpower is moments like this. And then when it's not a superpower is the other 23 hours of every single day.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
As we all know, and by we, I mean nerds, the intro to each episode of Bridgerton per each season changes based on the main romantic couple of that season. So season
I
1,
love catching the differences in what they portray.
the Tree of Life.
the Edmund Bridgerton Tree of Life.
Season 1 had Daphne and Simon. Season 2 had Anthony and Kate. Season 3, Penelope and Colin. What are a few new things that we see on this tree during the opening credits? Colin's name written in the tree. We see paper and a quill writing, a butterfly known to represent Penelope and the Featheringtons, and a hot air balloon, which is giving Sanditon.
That hot air balloon scene. When I saw those in the promo, I'm like, oh no, we're going to get a Sanditon hot air balloon scene.
So getting into the plot, summary, commentary of season 3 of Bridgerton, starting with episode 1, titled Out of the Shadows. After 2 long years, it's a voiceover, baby, as everyone is arriving back to London for the marriage season. The Featheringtons arrive back in London, and we see the Featherington women in their lime fucking green home that's full of new staff because they've got a little money, baby. How do they have money? They stole it. If you remember the events of last season, they basically used Jack Featherington, a fraudster, a scammer, a fucking schemer, to defraud a ton of men in the town out of some of their money for an investment in a completely fictional gem, ruby, diamond, emerald mine located in the Americas. Portia Featherington ran Jack Featherington out of town at the end of season 2, kept all the fucking money. And I'm not going to say that I don't admire it because that would be a lie.
I love it. Portia Featherington did that because now they're a female-run household in the ton.
Feminist icon, Portia Featherington?
Who knew?
What they have been telling people is that they inherited a bunch of money from Aunt Petunia out in the country. And we find out from Varley that Aunt Petunia was penniless, broke, single as fuck, and dead. Portia's like, nobody needs to know that. All they need to know is we have money now.
Love that.
And they are shopping, okay? They've got new staff. They've got dresses. They've got money. Penelope is observing everybody who has recently returned to the town with their new issue of Lady Whistledown. Business has been booming. Thanks to Madame Delacroix. Running smoothly. Madame Delacroix, still her partner in crime. Love that for both of them. And we are introduced to some new debutantes in the town. We just get some new names that are fun that maybe will become relevant in coming seasons. One is Miss Kenworthy, who stands out to book readers who have ventured into the Smythe Smith series by Julia Quinn, which is a Bridgerton series kind of spinoff. From there, we head over to the Bridgerton house where everybody is getting ready for Francesca. Who's she? I don't know. Never met her. Francesca's society ton presentation.
Give us nothing.
Go, girl. Give us absolutely fucking nothing.
I feel for Francesca because I am such a Francesca.
What has now become the tradition, the season opens in this fashion once we get over to Bridgerton house with a Bridgerton family member preparing to be presented to the queen. And the rest of the family just eavesdropping Pride and Prejudice Bennett sisters style outside the door.
Love it. There's 2 Bridgerton girls out right now, Eloise and Francesca.
Yeah.
Lady Bridgerton's
all 5
tired.
out in society.
All at once.
Oh, that's very odd.
And no governess.
No governess. However, Francesca, who is now played by the lovely Disney princess face Hannah Dodd.
Goodness me, she's pretty.
Wow, she is stunning. The character of Francesca was previously played by an actress named Ruby Stokes. Ruby Stokes chose to leave the Bridgerton verse to star in another Netflix show that was called Lockwood & Co. that was unfortunately canceled. And once she quit Bridgerton, she was replaced by Hannah Dodd, which worked in two different ways. So obviously covered the departure of a cast member by recasting her somebody else, and gave the show the opportunity to make Francesca look a little bit older and a little bit more mature.
And the casting is so well done because honestly, it's like you're comparing like before and after pictures.
Or like sisters. They look really, really similar. And they could just be the whiteness of it all, but they look very similar.
Oh, God.
And even though the Bridgertons are like crowding in front of Francesca's door, trying to hear her get ready for her presentation, what they don't realize is that Francesca has been downstairs in the drawing room all morning playing the fucking funeral march on the piano because she doesn't give a fuck that she has to go to a presentation. She's like, this is just a thing I have to do and get through, whatever.
For those of us that know Francesca's story a little bit, this is a little bit of sad foreshadowing.
Yes, the funeral march especially. And the only one to notice that Francesca's like not even in her fucking room to begin with is Kate, who looks amazing. Kate and Anthony this season, oh my God, they're fucking goals.
They're great. Love them.
Even Violet, who's like pretty acutely aware of all of her children, hadn't realized that Francesca had already been dressed and been downstairs for like over an hour. Kate knows when she hears the piano playing, that's Francesca, baby. She's outsmarted us all.
Yeah, no, and it shows Kate stepping into her role of a sister, role of a guardian, you know, as a new Viscountess. It shows like she's paying attention and she's more in tune than even Violet is.
Yes. And Francesca's coming out honestly is like incredibly anticlimactic. It's quiet and subdued, and I think that a lot of that has to do with Francesca's characterization as being quiet and subdued and subtly neurodivergent. It's such a contrast to Daphne's coming out, where she was excited, poised, prepared, ready, ultimately became the diamond. Eloise is coming out where she was fucking panicking by A, how much she didn't want to do it, and B, how much she knew she would never measure up to Daphne. Mm-hmm. Francesca's not even thinking about that shit. She's just like, I don't want to, but I will because I have to. I'm a woman.
I'm going to do what I got to do to get through this.
So in spite of being like incredibly beautiful, lovely to look at, and very poised, her spirit's just not in it.
She couldn't be less interested.
It really is just going through the motions.
It's more about her knowing, like, I got to do what I got to do. But also, she's like, I can't wait to have my own house. Y'all are a lot.
Y'all are loud.
With her being away, she's always in Bath with her aunt.
She's always learning piano.
She's not really used to their dynamic like that. Their dynamic when they're all together and talking, and it's a lot for her because she hasn't been around it a lot. I think it fits with her characterization. It makes sense.
It makes me sad. I love big families. I love when big families love each other. Ruby Stokes didn't play Francesca this reserved.
She didn't.
And so I think that's a little bit of a disconnect.
There is, because when she comes back home, she's so happy to be back home. She's plays for everyone. Colin is singing.
They're all dancing together.
So there's a bit of a difference there in how they play the character, which obviously is expected when you have to recast.
As they are finally hustling out of this house, they're late, baby. Bridgertons always are.
Fashionably, though.
Fashionably late. They run into Colin, and we get like a little cut in where we see Colin arriving at the shipyard, gets into like a hired hack or like a small carriage. From that carriage arrives home to Bridgerton House as everyone is exiting to go over to the palace for Francesca's debut. And it's giving pirate. You know what I'm saying?
Do you know that they modeled him after the Marlboro Man? Supposedly, I'm like, Marlboro, where do you get cowboy from?
Bitch, where? I'm Googling that.
That's a pirate if I've ever seen one.
It's good. Well, I'm glad they did that. Colin Bridgerton gives pirate. So as he's approaching Bridgerton House, he comes upon a gaggle of young ladies, of misses. One of them takes her fucking glove off with her teeth and tosses it on the ground to make this man pick it up and give it to her. And it's like, okay, girl, that's one way to do it, and I respect it. And Colin like gives his glove back with a flourish and a wink
Excuse me, sir?
Yeah.
Please go back where you came from. Turn around and try again.
He makes his way through this gaggle of ladies and finally walks up to his family, who's like, oh shit.
He has returned.
Both Paola and one of my friends have said the same thing independently, which is this Gaston from Beauty and the Beast? Because all he needs is a small ponytail. I eat 6 dozen eggs a day or some shit like that. No one fights like Gaston.
No one eats like Gaston. Sorry.
I can't. I was about to quote a meme and then I remembered that you're not going to understand it.
Explain it to me.
It's like, no one eats like Gaston. Mini wheats like Gaston. No one says that bitch empty and yeets like Gaston. Thank you. Ryan knows.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, I spend a lot of time on the internet. So he is Gaston. He's got a brown trench coat. He's got some fucking boots. He looks like a goddamn pirate. He's got ruffles on his sleeves, I think. It's like the collar's open. There's no cravat. It's loosey-goosey what's happening out here. He is as tan as an artificial self-tanner will get him. And that's orange. So his family is just as surprised as we are to see this glow up. And I don't know if you guys remember what Colin looked like in season 2. He wasn't really a big focus, but he was definitely featured. He was a little more boyish. He had a little crust on his face that looked like facial hair in the right light. We get into this season, again, whatever camp Shonda forces these men to go into before they star in their season, he's like cut up, he's thinner, his face is like jawline carved, cheekbones up, not an ounce of chapstick to be found anywhere.
Sturdy. No chaps.
He looks like a grown-ass man. And his family's like, who the fuck is this? And he's just incredibly sturdy. Why do we know that he's sturdy? Because he gets into the carriage with the brothers Bridgerton on the family's way to the presentation. Again, they're already late. They're hustling, baby. Changes in the carriage. He is hairy, which is a thing I wouldn't have guessed.
I'm with it. I like it. I appreciate it.
So we get the famous line from the trailer where Benedict says, brother, where have you gone to get so sturdy? Not the dance, just physically.
Not the dance.
And you know what? The elder two Bridgerton brothers know. They know what the fuck he's been doing to get so sturdy. It's been fucking.
It's exercise, baby. Burning calories out here.
He's been fucking. Before they enter the carriages, watching all this from across the square is Penelope, hanging out like a butterfly amongst the bushes.
Oh.
Lady Whistledown in voiceover says, of the status quo, this author quickly grows weary.
You know, and there's this part where he's greeting everyone and then he turns and he looks towards the Featherington house. I don't think he saw her, though. I feel like he would have given an immediate reaction if he saw her.
I also don't think he saw her.
But it's like the way his first instinct is to turn to her house.
At Francesca's presentation, the queen is unimpressed by absolutely fucking everyone.
She is so tired.
She is tired as hell. She's tired. She's bored.
However, we are impressed and quite delighted to see our first representation of Britain's Sign Language in a romantic period drama. It's definitely a first for me.
So as we mentioned before, this season introduces people of like different body types, different levels of ability, physical ability. We have a lord who's in a wheelchair. We have someone signing with their parent in British Sign Language. It just brings a lot more depth and roundedness to this society, because imagine watching all of these shows and loving them and not finding yourself.
Not being able to see yourself.
In any of them.
We've seen that on a racial level, right?
You mean forever?
For
for
sure.
our whole lives?
And obviously that's a place where there's been a lot of improvement. But when it comes to disabilities, that's a whole different frontier of inclusion. Bridgerton's opening yet another door for representation for period and romantic dramas. And I'm here for it. Love it.
Yeah.
Every time.
Absolutely.
When it's Francesca's turn to walk down and present herself to the queen perks up. You know, even Brimsley's like, we've had good luck with Bridgertons.
It's funny that they say that because they've only had good luck with Daphne. And last season was a fucking wash.
I think he's remembering the one Bridgerton.
Yeah, right.
Because it has not been good luck. The score starts to play as she makes her way down to the queen. We're all hopeful. We're like, yes, this is going to be the Daphne moment. But alas, the queen is quite underwhelmed. And like Whistledown is wary of the status quo.
No, no, no. Stick to the stuff you know. Don't mess with the status quo. Just kidding. They all want to mess with the status quo.
You are the love of my life.
I know.
The only person getting attention at this presentation, however, is our guy Colin Bridgerton.
Gross.
Who's getting the eye from all the girlies. And he, in turn, gifts them with a wink. He winks like a kid who's been practicing in the mirror.
He really does. And he's wearing this like incredible, beautifully embroidered vest, embroidered with flowers, feathers. He accessorizes it with a citrus green cravat. They haven't put him and Penelope in the same room yet, but he is already mirroring some of these Featherington citrus colors. And as he stands next to Eloise, he notices that she looks different and asks her since when does she wear so many ruffles? Because something that we've observed in Eloise in seasons 1 and 2 is like she's appropriately adorned for the time period. Like her outfits are sufficiently girly. She's generally wearing Bridgerton blue, but she also kind of wears some more masculine elements, like, you know, some of her little jackets, some of her shrugs, the little bolero jackets. Like those things tend toward more tailored looking rather than more feminine and delicate. Her wardrobe toes that line like really gently of like masculine elements and feminine elements. However, something that we do see in Eloise in season 3 is significantly more femininity as you would interpret in that time period. Colin's kind of like, girl, what's up? What you wearing? She goes, it's the style of the season. Ruffles.
What?
Florals for spring, groundbreaking. She seems to be departing from her persona in seasons 1 and 2, where she's deliberately going against the grain of the ton. And now she's keeping her head down. She's like, I don't want to stand out. I don't want anyone to notice me. I am wearing the ruffles. It's ruffle season. You know, don't point it out. Don't make it weird. This is also inspired by her new friendship with who? Cressida Cowper. That bitch. Last season, just 1 year prior, according to the timeline of the Bridgerton series, she told her, hey, fuck off. I'd rather die than be your friend. No, someone's dead, and it's not Eloise. No, I'm joking. It's Lord Featherington. But
oh my gosh. Jesus.
After the formal debutante presentation to the Queen, we see everybody at a garden party. Cressida and Eloise are walking together at this garden party, and it's fucking weird. And it's a party in the Queen's honor that she doesn't even attend, which Portia Featherington is like scandalized by. And as they're having this garden party, you see birds in cages. You know, the Queen loves a fancy decoration, human statues, big bouquets of flowers, and incredibly grandiose things. Now we have caged birds. You know, something that Paola has mentioned to me about the way that these women must feel at presentations like this, very similar to how a caged bird feels. Not free, not able to determine its own life, has no agency. So beautiful to look at that we want to trap it and look at it forever.
And I think it's one of the themes of this season. Actually, of the women in Bridgerton wanting to escape their circumstances.
Yeah.
And something it made me think about is something that Eloise says in season 1 about the debutantes wearing the giant feathers in their hair, where she's like, they're like birds squawking for a man's attention in some bizarre ritual.
Respect.
One of my favorite Eloise quotes.
And the irony of that is that in nature, the vast majority of colorful, fancy, peacocking, not even just the peacock birds, but like peacocking birds are male.
Are men.
Males have to compete for a female's attention in order to like procreate and carry on their genetics. So the fact that in this sphere of society that is reversed gender-wise, where the men have fucking easy pickings and the women are the ones that have to be accomplished and be beautiful and be articulate but not too much and be funny but not too much. That reversal is like the biggest irony of patriarchy.
No, and the competition it creates between the females, which again is another theme we see repeated. And speaking about birds and feathers, we have the Featherington women walking into this garden. They have a little chunk of change now, so they're all looking a little extra colorful, a little extra put together. Portia has told the story about Aunt Petunia. As Nadhya mentioned before, we learn from Varley that Aunt Petunia was a spinster herself. And something Vardy says is, who would believe that a spinster who never owned anything would have a fortune hiding under her floors? In the shot where she says is where they're at home preparing to leave for this garden. Walks in Penelope into the shot. And I thought that the show loves to do shit like that. And that's genius.
Because who else is a spinster with money in her floorboards? Penelope Featherington, baby.
Come on. We've seen it.
And here we also meet, which I think is fun and interesting. I don't know, fun and interesting, but I also did kind of feel like it was a throwaway. Like, I was a little bummed by how we like yada yada over this. Prudence has a new husband who is dumb as the day is long.
Very sweetly dumb, though.
So sweetly dumb. A real golden retriever of a man. And we did not witness that courtship.
I am so sad we didn't witness that courtship. Because it just must have been unhinged.
Oh, absolutely. His name is Lord Dankworth. What? Harry Dankworth. And we don't know a lot about him, but the actor James Foon is of Asian descent, and his character wears a Chinese charm on his waistcoat. So that's really, really cool and a very subtle, lovely detail.
They gave in this season the actors a bit of autonomy to be able to portray their identities within their costuming, even secondary, tertiary characters. And I love that the show does that for even the actors themselves to feel empowered in their characters.
Yeah, that's really cool. He is comically aloof, worships Prudence, who seems to barely tolerate him.
Oh,
and it makes me sad.
I think she just likes to look at him.
I think Harry Dankworth deserves more. Portia now has 2 girls married off. Wow, what a feat. Mrs. Bennet shaking in her boots. The challenge now is that one of them has to provide a male heir to be able to keep their property in the Featherington family. Women were not allowed to inherit. That's such a cute time in history. And their estate would have automatically passed to the next living male relative, also known as Jack fucking Featherington, that bitch. Before Portia Featherington ran that motherfucker out of town, she got Varley to forge his signature on a document that basically forfeited his inheritance of any and all Featherington estates and had it pass on to the next male Featherington heir, which would ideally come from one of Portia Featherington's daughters. Now, Philippa and Prudence are in this fucked up race to see who will get pregnant first because they want to be the next Lady Featherington, even though their last names are no longer Featherington, running the Featherington home. Even as Portia is like encouraging that from them because she wants to literally secure her line, she doesn't seem excited by the fact that one of her daughters might be the new mistress of her home. She actually seems unhappy about it.
Portia loves her home. I don't think she can
give it up.
She barely could tolerate her husband in her home.
Fair.
One of her daughters having to inherit the home by way of an heir places her in a position where she's got to live under their care. And no, that doesn't sound exciting, especially if one of your daughters is Prudence or Philippa.
Anywho, Penelope walks in her bright yellow. Ugh, it's giving season 2.
She wore this dress in season 1.
A sustainable queen in a dress we saw her wear in season 1. This is kind of reminding you just of where she started and how she still kind of remains in the same place, even though the world around her continues moving. And the first thing she sees when walking in is Colin flirting with a group of girls. We saw so much of Colin flirting in season 1, but there was like a different flavor to it. Like his flirting in season 1 just felt wholesome. His flirting now feels more like sexually charged.
Sexually, I don't know that it's sexually charged. Oh no, yeah, it is a little sexually charged. I cannot tell you about my travels because I'd have to marry you. Excuse me, shut the fuck up.
Anyway, the man is like laying down the Riz. He is putting it on thick.
But like too much though.
Too thick. 3 C's. 2 would be great. 3 C's of thick. And everyone is asking about his travels, his intentions for the season. All these girls are like, are you trying to get married? Because I'm single as fuck. Get over here. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry to disappoint, but I don't plan on taking a wife.
But then adds, in my travels, I learned to expect the unexpected.
Paola posits a fun drinking game here, which is anytime you watch season 3 and Colin says, in my travels, take a shot. See if you make it to the end of an episode. See if you make it to the end of one singular episode of this show.
Oh my God.
Lord. And he starts kind of like doing this rhetorical dance with his experiences, the truth, and charm, where he is trying to talk about his experiences just enough to intrigue people, but not give them too much. And he's really just trying to enjoy the attention from this group of girls. And they're obsessed with it. They're like, he's the coolest boy to ever come back from summer vacation ever.
He looks like a peacock, by the way,
There
like
it
with
is.
the hair. Because in this scene specifically, his hair is very high. The way he's wearing the cravat, he looks like a peacock just showing off.
That Bridgerton staff, they be hiring people just to think, because I bet you that was intentional. Man, I fucking love this show.
He's peacocking. Yes. The cadence of his voice is different. His smile even is tight, less genuine. Mm-hmm. And it's just so clear that he's sporting a facade. We don't like it at all.
As Penelope tries to look away from that spectacle, she crosses paths with Eloise. I mean, to the surprise of the viewer, Eloise doesn't seem angry. She just seems really awkward and apprehensive.
You know, I was relieved to not see her angry.
I think angry Eloise would draw way too much attention. And that is like specifically what she's not trying to do. So she's like, I'm trying to play it cool because I'm in public, but I'm feeling super fucking weird about this. It's almost more like you running into your ex in public than it is you running into a former friend. I don't know if it was Bridgerton specifically, but we've definitely discussed like friend breakups before. Friend breakups cut deeper than most romantic breakups.
Especially besties. Like, you expect to be friends forever. I was watching an interview with Claudia Jessie, and something she said
She's
that
delightful.
I was like, oh. She goes, you know, romantic relationships, you almost kind of expect them to end at some point. Unless this is the person you're marrying. And even then, sometimes you're expecting for them to end. Whereas with friendships, you build friendships for them to last a lifetime.
Yeah, friend breakups hurt like a bitch. And that's what Eloise and Penelope are learning.
We see it on Eloise's side. We see it on Penelope's side. You're kind of just like, oh, guys, make up, please.
Please stop. Eloise walks off with Cressida Cowper. Gross. The person who we've seen bully Penelope for the last 2 seasons. And Penelope is struggling. She's holding back tears. Like, that sucks. And she's kind of thinking what all of us are thinking, which is like, what the fuck is going on between Eloise and Cressida? How the fuck are they ever going to be friends again? And as Penelope stands there, Colin breaks away from this flock of ladies. The avian references are out the window, out of the cage. So many birds.
What? Yes. Love that.
He goes up to Penelope to greet her. He has not seen her, obviously, in many months. And at the end of season 2, we saw Colin telling a group of shitty fucking dudes, oh, I'd never court Penelope Featherington. Not in a million years. Shut up. He doesn't know that she overheard him say that. And she has been carrying that stone of anger for the last, 7 months. And he comes back to talk to Penelope. He's talking to her normally in his actual voice, in his actual cadence. He is not putting on. He's not trying to front and be flirty.
That was such a relief.
Because it was like, oh, is this what he's like now? Penelope is now the one who feels different as she talks to Colin. She's dry, unenthusiastic, short. And Colin at this moment, I think he's so swept up in everything that's going on and all the attention that he's receiving that he's pretty fucking clueless. He wants to talk about his vest and how all the rage it is in Paris fashion. And she doesn't follow up with a question about his trip because she doesn't really care to know.
What's funny about that is in season 2, they were writing to each other the
consistently.
Whole time. This season, she has not written to him. She doesn't know.
He has written to her and she has not responded.
Which is important to point out.
Love that. He asks her about Eloise and Cressida. He's like, what the fuck is that about? Penelope's just kind of like, things have changed. Time flies. And dips out. She joins her mother and her sister who are discussing what each of them would do if they were to become the mother to the heir to the Featherington estates. And Portia, this boiled my blood. The way Portia was just like, Penelope, I can't wait for you to grow old with me. I know I'll never be alone when you're there because you're a spinster and no one wants you. You know how you're completely unlovable and you'll never get married? I'm so grateful for that. Portia, I'll kill you myself. Sleep with one eye open. Penelope decides it's time for a change. She's like, I cannot fucking do this. I resist living in a home run by one of my dumbass fucking sisters. She needs to find a husband, escape her family. She goes back to the modiste and goes, listen, if I never see a fucking citrus color again, it'll be too goddamn soon. And she starts draping these like incredible fabrics over her to look at them against her skin tone. I'm like, okay, girl, we're finding out the color seasons.
Do you know what's the first color she puts up against her? She puts this lilac color on her, which symbolized, Nadhya, tell me.
First love. As Penelope is getting all of these gorgeous, cool colors put up against her skin tone, much more flattering for her, she tells Madame Delacroix perhaps something like what they're wearing in Paris.
Aww. When I heard her say that, I was like, oh no, girl. Still down bad.
Crying at the gym. The immediate cut after this is Gregory testing out a bow and arrow that Colin has brought back from Greece and pointing it directly at his heart, personifying the adorable little cherub, Cupid himself. Colin has brought gifts from his travels for the entire family. He's brought perfume for Hyacinth, playing cards for Benedict, a watch for his mother, which feels very, very symbolic of a new era of her life and a new time.
Oh, can I point something out? In season 1, when Colin's leaving for the first time for his tour in Greece, Gregory asks for a gift.
Yes.
And Hyacinth's like, you can't ask for a gift, but bring me something blue or white. And the perfume that he brought her is blue.
Aw, I love that. Colin has also brought back sheet music for Francesca, who has no other personality traits other than loving music, and a book for Eloise. But Eloise is like, I'm gonna toss that shit up in the TBR because she's in the middle of reading Emma by Jane Austen. How
we
fun.
love a Jane Austen girl.
And for those of y'all who may not know, which I feel like is none of you, Emma is a novel by Jane Austen, the same author of Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility, that centers around a lady of high social class in Regency era England who likes to meddle and matchmake and ultimately falls in love with her childhood friend, her next door neighbor.
What does that sound like?
This story was famously immortalized in Clueless.
It was.
Starring Alicia Silverstone. Colin asks Eloise about her sudden change in reading material and uses that as an opportunity to ask about her new choice in friends. Hey, bitch, you've been changing a lot. What's up with that? And she answers, I've joined the winning side. I'm tired of being very different and having that shit used against me.
But then she adds, not unlike you, I guess.
Both of them are left side-eyeing each other. Nothing like a sibling to cut you to the bone. Eloise leaves the home with her mother and Francesca. They are headed to the Modiste, and they awkwardly run into Penelope as she's on her way out. They speak privately for a moment. Penelope thanks Eloise for keeping her secret, her Lady Whistledown-shaped secret, and immediately tries to apologize further and explain her effort to protect Eloise and her reputation. Not quite her reputation, but protect her bodily from the Queen.
The Queen.
When she released that issue of Lady Whistledown. Eloise cuts her off, tells her, listen, this shit is behind me. New year, new me. New marriage season, new me. I'm keeping your identity a secret because I don't need to bring this with me into my future.
And this storyline just is so heartbreaking. I think it's the biggest heartbreak.
Absolutely.
A lot of the showrunners have mentioned this a number of times. They refer to Eloise and Penelope as the second romance of this season.
So to lift our spirits after this really sad interaction between Eloise and Penelope, we learn that the Mondriches, who we have mentioned, former boxer, I should say, Will Mondrich, current Gentleman's Club owner, Will Mondrich, and his wife, Alice, and their 3 lovely young little children are getting a super big glow up because they have inherited a title. How? Alice's aunt has passed away and has left her baronetcy to Alice's firstborn son.
So even though she had closer relatives than Alice,
none of them had sons. So this is like huge. After this bit of happy news, we cut over to Kate and Antony. They are trying to create some fucking heirs. What does that mean, guys? Say it with me. They be fucking. And they're I have to make that a sticker. They're in the throes of wedded bliss. We love seeing them be this like happy-go-lucky in their relationship. They're so happy. Kate has slowed down. She stops and smells the flowers, literally.
In the garden when they're out, foreshadowing that she's kind of ready to take it slow.
She's been spending a lot of time with Violet. She's learning about being a Viscountess. She's learning about taking care of the other Bridgerton children. They're in a house full of people because they're a Bridgerton house. And they can't, have as good a time, as loud a time as they'd like to have in their privacy. They had a 6-month-long honeymoon, famously. And by the end of the episode, they kind of decide, I want to extend this honeymoon. Who gives a shit? We're working on having heirs. We already have so much money. We'll be A-okay. And you know what, dog? I agree. They should do that. But first, they have to attend the first ball of the season, which is the Four Seasons Ball held by Lady Danbury. And something that we get a more intimate look at this ball is Penelope Featherington's makeover. This was like a huge point of anticipation in this episode, I think.
I couldn't wait.
We all saw the promos of her in these fabulous blue, green, lilac dresses. We were ready. The fact that she opens up the season and is still wearing yellow, everyone's like,
come on. But I wanted more makeover. I wanted more montage.
Same.
Yeah, we got this quick little montage of Ray, Penelope's lady's maid, one of the MVPs of the season, helping her get ready for Lady Danbury's ball. I needed it to maybe be to like a classical version of Kiss Me, to match the kiss curls. I needed her to like turn her around in the makeup chair and then
Princess Diaries.
Hold a before picture in front of her and then
You mean a before
reveal
portrait.
her new look. I needed all of it. And like we mentioned before, this is a part that Jess Brownell mentions was directly inspired from She's All That.
Elite movie, first of all.
Love it. I just saw it the other day.
Elite movie, elite Freddie Prinze Jr. Nobody watch He's All That unless you want us to cover it, because I will. But She's All That, like, cannot top it, cannot beat it. Fucking Matthew Lillard is in it. Legend. Freddie Prinze Jr. Legend.
But one thing I do like that they did, even though this is inspired by She's All That, in She's All That, that makeover is almost forced on Lainey. I like that Penelope took ownership of her transformation. She took ownership of her makeover. She said, no, fuck you guys. This I want to do for me.
As the Featherington women arrive at this Four Seasons ball, Four Seasons Total Landscaping, A, B, C, D, E, F, U starts playing the orchestral version. Again, bops all around. That song is a fucking bop. Penelope walks in alone behind the other Featherington women. They have completely lost track of her. They don't even know where the fuck she is and they don't care. And she's wearing this bright red cloak that is taken from her at the door by a footman to reveal her new look. Her hair is down and is beautifully Hollywoodly draped over one shoulder. Baby hairs are laid down.
Laid, baby.
And she wears this sparkly peacock blue dress that creates a really lovely contrast with her fair skin and red hair. She's wearing like black elbow length lace gloves, which is like, okay, girl, I didn't know y'all could do that.
Like see-through.
Yeah, it's very
seductive, sexy.
provocative.
It's provocative. It's provocative.
It's provocative. It gets the people going. Everyone stops to stare at Penelope as she's walking in because everybody's like, what the fuck? It really is like when Cinderella walks into the ball, except everyone here knows, oh shit, that's Penelope. Colin stops talking mid-sentence when he gets a glimpse of her and has to stop and take a sip of his drink.
Tanta agua y yo con sed. Coño, mami. Tanta curva y yo sin freno.
Even Cressida is impressed. Cressida, more like Impressida. And Penelope takes up her usual position against the wall because she's like, I'm so uncomfortable. The last thing I'm going to do is head into the crowd and talk to y'all. Because guess what, baby? Confidence is built, not bought.
That shit was so separately.
Can't get it with your clothes. Oh, that's good. That's better than what I said.
Yes, because she walks in stunning. Everybody's looking
stunning.
at her. And our girl goes and stands by the lemonade stand. Like her usual, like she would have done any other ball.
So that's something that Paola and I talked about quite a bit off mic. Like, as Maddie Perez famously says in Euphoria, the thing about confidence is no one knows if it's fake. I wish that she had just come in with persona, even if it's not her. Like, if she had just come in, like, doing demure, doing debutante, like, that wouldn't have felt authentic, obviously, to Penelope, but I think that just would have had such an interesting contrast. Colin is doing the same thing, but he's a boy. And then Penelope could be doing the same thing and maybe even be successful. And that can be the thing that kind of sparks Colin's jealousy. Obviously, that's not how the storyline goes. But I also think this is a representation of the clothes aren't going to change who she is. She's going to be the same person. She's super awkward. I mean, men approach her because they're like, damn, girl, you looking good. And she's like, I've been reading books. And they... and the shit does not work out. Someone compliments her dress. She says, thank you, you too.
Like when...
Enjoy your meal. Thank you, you too. Poor Penelope. The men are like, all right, this bitch is weird. I thought the dresses would make her different, and I was wrong.
Aww.
And now she's alone
again.
again.
They could not leave fast enough.
And she's standing at the edge of the ballroom. She doesn't know how to interact any other way. She doesn't know anyone anymore. There's no security blanket friend group. There's no Eloise. There's just no more comfort.
You really start to see in this season what she has struggled with on her own and why she turned to Lady Whistledown.
Also, can I just say, award for best brother-in-law goes to Mr. Finch. Because when she walks into the ballroom, Mr. Finch is the only one to turn around and smile. He's like, oh, she looks great.
Love it. I love it.
Mr. Finch and his little allergies. He's the best. As Penelope kind of begins to fade into the background again, Eloise is watching her from a distance, and she genuinely seems really concerned. This is another signal to the viewer. Eloise still cares. She's still keeping eyes on Penelope, but she's conflicted about that. Eloise is such a loyal person that even though they're outwardly beefing and she really isn't interested in like being close with Penelope at this point in time, she still doesn't want her to suffer.
Right. Yeah, she feels bad for her.
We're going to cut over to Francesca. You know who else is also not having a great time? Our favorite musical introvert. Francesca is feeling super fucking overwhelmed, even though everyone's trying to get at her because she's stunning and she's a Bridgerton. But talking to her is like talking to paint drying. And she goes up to Anthony and is like, can I have a moment to myself? This is a lot. And Anthony has learned a lot from his endeavor to marry off Daphne in season 1. He has learned even more from season 2. And he's like, you know what? Take your time. Wow, dude.
Wow.
We love how people transform when they're loved and supported and understood. Francesca goes and stands with Penelope on the sidelines. And Penelope warns her, once you find yourself on the wall, it's difficult to come off of it.
Why did I think of Jon Snow?
Oh my God, like the Night Watch?
Standing at the wall.
Jesus Christ. All the fandoms are overlapping right now, Paola. Being on the wall does seem like it would be fine for Francesca. She doesn't seem to enjoy any type of attention. She wants to melt into the background. Penelope and Francesca bond over how different they are from their siblings. Obviously, Francesca loves her siblings, but is very different from them. They're boisterous, they're loud, they're extroverted and outgoing. Penelope is different from her siblings because her sisters are bitches. When a man approaches Francesca to ask her to dance, and she dutifully obliges, she tosses Penelope's words back at her. You should take to the floor. It's difficult to come off the wall once you are on it.
Okay, Francesca. Maybe you have a point, but first, let me have some ice cream. And as Penelope takes a full quarter of a cup of ice cream to the face.
Respect. Relatable queen.
She gets greeted by a new member of the Ton that we have not yet met. Lord Might Steal Your Girl Debling walks up to her just as she's experiencing a brain freeze.
If that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what it is.
Man, Penelope, what luck, girl. He observes that there's some girl on the sidelines, right? Like the new Cressida Cowper is sneering at Penelope. And she's graciously ignoring it as she has been doing ever since she's been out. And he goes to her and says, why do I have the feeling that you, in turn, know how to make one wither?
Okay, girl.
Ooh, Mr. Debling. I mean, that can mean a couple of things.
That's what I'm saying.
But okay. What's clear, though, is that Lord Alfred Debling, played by the very handsome blonde Sam Phillips, sees her very differently than the rest of the Ton does. Off the bat. I mean, and they've obviously been introduced before we don't see this because she says, oh, you must be Lord Debling.
Lurking behind Penelope as she has this pleasant interaction with Lord Debling is Cressida fucking Cowper, who ruins the moment by placing the heel of her pointy-heeled shoe on the hem, very delicate lace hem of Penelope's beautiful new gown, which then tears when Penelope tries to move. And adds, it's a pity you did not pick something sturdier. I don't know, like Colin Bridgerton.
She's gonna pick something sturdier.
Like Colin Bridgerton's sturdy chest. And don't worry, Cressida. Foreshadow. And Penelope, she immediately starts crying. I mean, God knows how much this dress cost in Lady Whistledown money. And Penelope just looks at Eloise like she can't fucking believe this. Eloise tries to stammer out an apology.
Pen runs out of this ballroom in tears. And this is one of the scenes we saw Bridgerton release early on as a teaser clip where Colin meets her outside and kind of asks her like, hey, what's going on? You know, you didn't write to me this summer. Something we didn't see in that clip that I think kind of changes the dynamic of this interaction is that when she runs out, she runs past Colin and he immediately clocks that something's wrong with her and wants to go check on her. He's worried. The boys that he's talking to, who he had been, you know, regaling with the stories of his escapades, they try to stop him like, don't worry about her. That's the Featherington girl. He's almost confused by what they say. And he's like, excuse me, and follows her out anyway to ask her what's wrong. I mean, and he's mostly asking her what's wrong between them because he's felt that her energy's off, but also he knows that she's crying. But he goes with, why haven't you replied to any of my letters? You know, I miss you.
And he says that like he is bestowing her with a gift.
And she responds with, oh,
you want to talk about mamas.
Oh, you miss me, but you would never court me. And she unloads everything that's been bothering her since last season. It's bad enough that she's the laughingstock of the ton. She knows that. She's been living through that. She, however, didn't ever expect him to be the one to be cruel. To us, the viewer, I think we can interpret. When he said that, his interpretation is like, oh, that's my friend. I would never court her. He didn't have to say in your wildest dreams, though, but okay. He's kind of like, oh, shit. Can we talk somewhere else? I mean, She goes, good night, Mr. Bridgerton. That's right, girl. Déjalo ahí, botao. And she heads home and starts furiously writing Whistle Down. Her outlet after this terrible night. Probably not the best time to write Whistle Down.
Friends, don't let friends write Lady Whistle Down when they're mad.
When they're mad. Yeah. But
she ain't got no friends.
And so you best believe she was writing about Colin. So the next day, Cressida crows to Eloise about how she sent Penelope a message by tearing her dress. She's very proud of her actions. And thankfully, Eloise calls her out on her shit and makes it clear that what she did wasn't cool. Mm-hmm. And then Cressida goes into this whole, society pits young women against each other. Something I do recall that she did say in season 1. She said it to Daphne, where she says, I knew this season would put us against each other, but I didn't think it'd be like this, when Daphne,
quote unquote, takes the prince
right from under her. She blames society as if she's not responsible for her own actions, but okay. She then mentions Eloise has rebuffed her attempts at friendship in the past as well. However, maybe she shouldn't have tried being her friend by simultaneously insulting her friend.
Because people can famously only have one friend. We all know this.
The show wants to try to humanize Cressida. And we can understand and feel sympathy for a girl with little agency. And, and very few options in the early 1800s. But this bitch has proven time and time again that she's a bitch. But the only thing slightly selling it to me is that she shows a bit of self-awareness. And she agrees that she will leave Penelope alone. She's not going to bother her this season like she did for the past 2 seasons in a row. Mm-hmm. And in this scene while they're talking, it's summertime, but Eloise is wearing a muff. And this is because while they were filming this, Claudia Jessie had a wrist injury. In order to cover up her wrist injury, they created a muff and called it a summer muff.
So silly.
Because they made it up of lighter fabrics. So I guess one of the advantages of going off period with some of the costuming is that you're able to add things like a summer muff and it goes.
I mean, she looks great. I love Claudia Jessie. She's so fucking fun. Her in interviews, I'm like, interview her so much more. I wish she had been in all of the press for seasons 1 and 2. I mean, not that there was much, as we mentioned, due to the pandemic, but she's so fucking funny.
We're all shipping Louise at the moment.
It's not that I'm shipping them. It's that Cressida feels gay to me. And I don't know if it's like Eloise wants to be with her. I don't think that's the case, but there's something about her. I'm excited to see where they take her the next 4 episodes. Unfortunately, the humanization of Cressida has worked on me. I do feel for her.
No, it worked on me too.
Because the biggest bullies are traumatized people.
Bullies are not born, they're made.
And she was not only made by the society, but as you learn in the coming episodes, she was made that way by her shitty parents. So, not to excuse it, you still have a choice. Like Penelope. Penelope's still nice to people, even though her family fucking sucks.
Oh, you know what? I love that parallel.
Yeah.
And this season does do that. They do place Penelope and Cressida kind of. Cressida is like the anti-Penelope. But this season puts them closer together, gives them more of a comparison. They're competing for the same suitor. I love that parallel, Nadhya, that Cressida has had it rough in her household. Mm-hmm. However, you've also seen Penelope have it rough in her household.
And not be
and
shitty.
She's not a bitch.
Yeah.
But she's not a bitch to people's faces.
But she is Lady Whistledown.
So those same characteristics that Cressida shows outwardly to people, Penelope portrays as Lady Whistledown. Bridgerton, I love them taking those two personalities and placing them against each other so you can compare, really, and hold a mirror to both of them and see, okay, well, you celebrate one of them, you don't celebrate the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's because Penelope has been a sympathetic character the whole time, and Cressida has been so antagonistic, not only to Penelope, but also to Daphne.
Yes.
You're like, ew, I don't want to ride for you. You messing my girls.
Yeah, no, and I think now that the show is giving you a bit more of her backstory and you see she's been struggling at home. Mm-hmm. Now you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense a little bit.
Like, she also demands the freedom of marriage, the same way Penelope is endeavoring for that this season. Endeavoring and endeavoring. So thank you.
All right.
Off the dome.
You're a funny one.
Another woman trying to do her best under an oppressive patriarchal system is Portia Featherington. Listen, you don't have to agree with her methods, but Portia Featherington, feminist icon, and she is paid a visit in her home, her lovely green and yellow home, by a lawyer who is employed on behalf of the crown, who is questioning the validity of the document that she and Mrs. Varley forged. This is how the entire scene reads to me. He's looking at her and he's like, wink, wink. Look at this fun document that's definitely real. It would be so crazy if I investigated it further and I found out that it was fake. One of your daughters should have a son before I come back and decide I want to investigate further. My job is hard and it's a lot of paperwork. Someone needs a male heir. Nice estate you have here. Would be a shame if you lost it.
Our rich girl, Penelope,
Lady Whistledown herself,
who is outside in the Featherington garden, receives a visit from none other than Colin Bridgerton. Mm-hmm. Obviously affected from the things that she said to him the night before after the Danbury Ball. The way this man immediately apologizes when he walks in. He doesn't have to be coaxed into it. He doesn't have to be manipulated into apologizing. He doesn't try to gaslight her. He doesn't immediately apologizes for his callous comments and makes it clear that he is not ashamed of her. Quite the opposite. He seeks her out anywhere they are together. And we know this is true. We've been seeing this since season 1. And he continues with, "You're clever and warm. I am proud to call you my very good friend." Like when he starts with the "you're clever and you're warm," like you yourself in Penelope's place, like you're like, oh. And then he goes, "I'm proud to call you my very good friend," and you deflate. She may be warm, but it's cold in the friend zone.
Oh, Lord.
And then he sits with her. And something I noticed in this scene while watching is their hairstyles almost mirror each other. They both have like these big side swept curls.
The swoop?
Framing their face, like swooped curls. Because I feel like as their relationship progresses, his curls also loosen. Or maybe as the facade is fading, maybe as the facade is fading too. So it could be either or, as the facade is fading or as he's falling deeper for Penelope, his curls kind of start to soften. I wonder if that's an intentional part of the storytelling because I couldn't stop looking at his hair. His hair looks great. Anyway, back in the Featherington garden, she shares her frustration with feeling comfortable in the marriage mart, and he offers to help her by citing his work experience in 17 cities.
Lord Jesus.
Something that I found interesting when he mentions, "I've been to 17 cities. Charm can be taught." Any other time anybody asks him about his travels, he always answers with this nonchalant, "Oh, I've lost count. Oh, I'm not even sure. It was all a blur." But as soon as he's talking to Penelope about it, he doesn't feel like he needs to be nonchalant. He can be excited about having visiting 17 cities.
That's true.
And talk to her about what he's learned, the people he's met, what he couldn't do throughout the whole time because she wouldn't reply to his letters, he's excited to do with her now. He concludes this conversation with, "There's nothing more I want than to earn back the favor of the one person who has always truly made me feel appreciated."
Aww.
And this is significant. And I had that same reaction. Oh, man. Aw. But something that you realize about Colin, whenever he talks to Penelope about how he feels about their friendship, it's always about how good she makes him feel about himself. Even when he started his apology, he goes, "I know you will always lift my spirits." She was always the one to pour encouragement and attention into him. And that's a toxic relationship if it's one-sided. And I think when she draws back, he starts to realize that he misses that and he kind of needs it. Now he wants to win that back. And she forgives him. And I forgive him too. Because with that line, "I will do whatever it takes to win back your favor." What do you need? You want to find the husband? I'm going to help you do that. He starts this journey with her where he's encouraging her, pouring confidence into her. He starts to give that back to her in the way that she did for him for the past 2 seasons.
Which is very sweet.
So we forgave him.
Did we?
You know what? I forgave him. Ugh. Penelope forgave that man the day she met him and fell in love with him.
Lord.
So she agrees to accept his help and his friendship, and they shake on it. Ungloved, by the way. Okay, Pride and Prejudice lovers.
I know. I was going to say the Pride and Prejudice girls. No.
After he leaves, she's got this satisfied disbelief look on her face that quickly fades when she remembers the shit she wrote about him in Whistledown. Yee. While she was mad at him the night before, she pretty much wrote that Colin had adopted a new personality, came back practically a different person.
Ouch.
I mean, and honestly, she said what she said.
Honestly, on business.
Hello. And when Colin arrives to the house, Eloise is reading Whistledown. Right away, Eloise tries to hide it from him. And he's like, "What are you reading?" In this issue, Whistledown even questions the Queen's lack of choice for a diamond of the season, while in voiceover asking, "Is it fortitude or fear?" "Yours serve, your majesty." Penelope.
Insane
Wild
behavior.
After the Queen came for her last season, you're going to keep poking at the fucking bear?
Penelope's a bold bitch when she is behind a pen and anonymity.
Exactly. What we were saying, right? Cressida does it to people's faces.
It's not great, right? What either of them do is not great. But
No,
at the very
exactly.
least, Cressida is open about it.
Exactly. And Penelope just does it behind a pen. That episode ends with Colin saying he doesn't care what Lady Whistledown writes about him. But at this point, he has ruined Marina, nearly ruined Eloise. And he claims he will never forget her. He will ruin her. And he will ruin her.
Well,
he does a little
one way or
ruining.
another. He didn't specify how.
He will ruin Whistledown. And that's how the first episode closes out. A lot happens.
All right, guys. Wrapping up episode 1 and getting into episode 2, titled How Bright the Moon. The Queen has yet to pick a diamond. And she won't! Lady Danbury over tea presses her on this matter, and although she won't admit it, the Queen is feeling a little bit of pressure from Lady Whistledown. She defends her past choices by mentioning that last season's diamond, Miss Edwina, found a splendid match abroad. I wish we knew what that match was. Hopefully Kate mentions it. Hopefully we hear it maybe from chatter in the Bridgerton house. We have no idea what has become of Edwina. I don't think she makes any appearance in season 3, but I'd love to know. Also, I love the little Easter egg of the Queen being like, "I have a nephew who's a prince," because they would have made the sweetest match. Would love to know what happened to Edwina. Lady Danbury helps her settle on finding someone who sparkles, because diamonds aren't all that rare after all. As Lady Whistledown writes, that which some dismiss as common rock, time reveals to be precious stone. We're cutting over from that scene with the Queen to the scene of our new precious stone out for a promenade with Pirate Man Colin. He's wearing this fucking pirate coat. It's supposed to be warm out. I know England's not all that warm, but I'm very confused. He's got his Dominican roller set on. Paola swears she can almost see a heart formed by his curls. We don't know if that was intentional. But as Colin and Penelope walk together, we do realize that their clothes complement each other. They both are sporting vine patterns and appliques. And maybe this could be hinting at a garden, very similar to the garden that Violet Bridgerton hopes to be reawakened. Colin asks Penelope if she still wants him to coach her, even after what Lady Whistledown has written about him and his new fake personality. And Penelope kind of tries to apologize for what she herself has written by dismissing Lady Whistledown's column without letting on that she actually wrote it. He says that one day Lady Whistledown will be caught and we will dance on the day of her demise. We'll see.
Is this foreshadowing that it's going to happen at a ball?
Yikes.
In the book, it does.
In the book, it does. He doesn't have as much of a grudge against Lady Whistledown in the book because the Marina Thompson storyline doesn't happen. It's way more personal for Colin in the show than it is in the books. And he takes to personally attacking us all by saying no more talk of books. If you are to secure a match, you must engage in real life. First of all, shut up. Who the fuck asked you? Penelope did. And don't call me out like that. It's offensive. And he does have a point because Penelope really does need to stop being a wallflower and put herself out there if she's trying to find a husband. He encourages her to practice flirting with a few men. Quote, wave a fan and flutter your lashes. Men are simple beings. Is he speaking of himself? Is that all Penelope would need to do to get his attention? I don't know.
Well, think about it. That's all the women he's talked to do. Why hasn't he been able to build any true connections? Because all the women
are not Penelope.
Fucking wave their fans at him. So he's taken that like, oh, hey, maybe that's what you should do. It's working for them.
Yikes. And to Penelope's defense, that is exactly what she does. She's just really awkward. She's really nervous. She's fluttering her fan so quickly.
It was the execution.
The execution, we were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. And the lessons conclude because this was a major fail. So from here, we go to tea time, where Lady Danbury joins Lady Bridgerton at Bridgerton House to share that the Queen is not done with the season. She is simply waiting to be dazzled. She won't call her diamond, but that is what she's searching for.
Yo, it's so funny the way Lady Danbury la va guiando.
No, but it is funny because the irony is Lady Danbury has no skin in the game. Unless she sees the Bridgertons as like an extension of her own family. She has no skin in the game. Lady Danbury's kids are old. They're all married. Some of them don't even live in England anymore. What is she doing here? She should just be sitting on the sidelines watching. She wants to be in the mix.
Lady Danbury
loves chaos and drama.
Loves this shit.
A messy bitch.
Loves it almost more than Queen Charlotte does. She's making the tea so that they can spill the tea. She's puppeteering all the time. Like, you think it's Queen Charlotte. Lady Danbury puppeteers Queen Charlotte.
Yeah, honestly. Back at Bridgerton House, Lady Danbury ends up helping Lady Bridgerton compile a list of suitors that share Francesca's interests, also known as music and being quiet. Even though it didn't go as planned the season prior, and it likely will not this season either, it is a hoot and a holler to watch Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton work together.
I love them. To me, they're like what I think Penelope and Eloise are going to be in like 40 years. Also having some tea are the ladies in the Featherington home. However, it's not as fun over there because Portia needs her daughters to get pregnant ASAP so that they can keep the estate in Featherington hands. But they seem to be more interested in ordering upholstery and hiring new housekeepers.
And getting rid of Mrs. Varley.
Get rid of Mrs. Varley?
Ain't no one more loyal than Varley.
What?
The disrespect of that.
They're more interested in all of that shit than having sex with their husbands, apparently.
Gooey. If they're even having sex at all.
Oh, Prudence hates that it flattens her hair.
That's so funny and stupid.
But admits that she did do it the one time on her wedding night. We did consummate our marriage.
And it's like, how long ago was your wedding night?
It couldn't have been that long ago because maybe months.
Yikes.
Poor thing.
Ouch.
While Philippa expresses that her and Albion are very passionate. However, later on in the episode, when Portia tries to explain female pleasure, I do love this conversation and reference to female pleasure because Prudence's thing is like, I don't like doing it. It's not good for her.
Right. It's not fun.
It's not fun. So Portia starts to talk to her daughters about female pleasure, which I really appreciate.
But also
Hey,
you learn by what comes after that there's no way Portia has had any meaningful sexual conversation with her daughters even before their wedding nights.
Yeah, she didn't. She probably let the men take care
Jesus.
of this part of it. Because as Portia's explaining female pleasure, Philippa is confused about what a man is supposed to insert where.
Oh, man.
Because apparently her husband keeps his breeches on while they're kissing. And then he makes a funny noise and then he goes and changes his breeches. Oh no. This is a scene that happens later in the episode, but she turns around and is like, why must I be punished? This shit is so funny.
You do not tell a baker to bake.
Also, you're being punished because you obviously weren't clear to your daughters about what they needed to do once they got married.
What's that? Is it the consequence of my own actions?
Oh, man.
I'm not interested in that at all.
Hello. So, again, sex education is important through all centuries for both men and women.
This show is.
And just that storyline alone makes the case for the use of brothels. I'm just saying.
Oh my God.
For Finch.
Oh, yikes.
For Finch. I'm like, wait, what? He does what?
Yikes.
It is so innocent and kind of...
It's like a little sweet until you are like, wow, this is stupid.
To show you that maybe not all men...
Hashtag not all men.
Actually, not all men. If somebody didn't take care to educate the men as well as the women, like they were as ignorant or could have been as ignorant. That is wild. Definitely not in need of any further sex education is our boy Colin Bridgerton. We see him at a brothel with not one, but 2 sex workers. This made a lot of people very uncomfortable.
I'm one of them. I didn't love it.
I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, I personally don't feel that I needed to see him have a threesome to understand that he's sexually experienced.
Yeah,
okay, I get that.
I'm with you
right?
on that.
Fans of Colin and Penelope have a tender spot in their hearts for Colin. They like soft boy Colin. You don't want to see him sullied. And I think what this scene wants to communicate is the lack of emotional connection. As far as gentlemen at the time, this seems to be a normal rite of passage. We've seen it with every Bridgerton brother. We've seen it with the Duke. It's only made more scandalous because he frequents with 2 women at a time. But if you remember back in season 1, Anthony gets on him for not visiting brothels. I'm sure during his travels, this pressure continues from other male companions until he eventually experimented sexually in brothels. In this society, as you're coming of age, what options do you have to explore a woman? Because as a male coming of age in this society, you're kind of expected to be experienced. Look how we talked about Mr. Finch.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily allowed to have a girlfriend. So you're either chasing girls of a lower class, where you're not dishonoring a gentle lady. That's what Anthony had for a while with Sienna. Or you find somebody who's willing to be discreet. Either way, none of it has this wholesome quality that Paulin fans associate with Colin. Mm-hmm. One thing I'll say about the Ménage à Trois is, however scandalous it is, it's also the least personal you can get. Mm-hmm. It's less about connection and more about just the general sexual pleasure of it, right? And indulge me, if we're going to continue with the overarching theme in the season, which is that of Eros and Psyche, mm-hmm. Eros represents the god of desire, literally the origin of the word erotic.
Wow.
So this show, based on kind of this theme that they've given Colin from early on in the series, they were never going to make a Colin a virgin for Penelope. So for me, as long as he's tested and doesn't step out on Penelope.
Yeah, as long as he's tested.
As long
in 1815.
Oh my God. Anywho.
As long as he's tested.
He tells his hired lady companions that he's running late. But in the next scene, when you see him at the market, he's actually the one standing waiting for Penelope. We suspect this was an excuse for him to head out early.
Right.
He meets Penelope at the market. While they're at this market, they kind of have to walk around like they're roaming and looking at stuff and not necessarily together.
Okay.
because she is chaperoned, but it can start talks. Why is this eligible bachelor speaking to this single woman? Mm-hmm. So they're careful to like walk around, look at things as they're talking to not seem too engaged with each other. And that's something that I didn't realize until the end of the scene where Penelope goes, "Let me go before we're seen." And so I was like, oh, that's right. People can't really see them together or whistle down or write about it.
Ooh.
Penelope, feeling super self-conscious about her previous interaction with gentlemen, calls herself unteachable. And Colin's like, you're not unteachable. You know what you're doing. You're just self-conscious. Mm-hmm. And he reminds her about the first day that they met. And you find out, as the viewer, the first day that they met, her bonnet flies off of her head, knocks him off of a horse into the mud. Now, this scene is straight from the book. This is actually how you're introduced to their story. Mm-hmm. And according to the book, it's the day Penelope fell in love with him. Some book fans were hoping to see this flashback portrayed. Mm-hmm. But I do like how they did call back to it. And I do like that it was Colin that brought it up. Mm-hmm. And what I love most about him bringing up this memory about their first meeting is that he considered her to be charming. And he points out that she was able to be charming because she wasn't self-conscious as a kid yet and still didn't care what people thought.
That's true.
And I love her response, and it's very true, which is, it is impossible to be in society and not care what others think. Society is entirely composed of the judgment of others.
She's right.
Not one lie told. And take a shot. He shares in his travels when he was abroad. It gave him the freedom to become fully himself because he didn't have to be the Colin Bridgerton that the Ton expected him to be.
It's true.
To which he adds, and I also love this line, even though it contradicts the other, living for the estimation of others is a trap.
And he's not wrong.
In this scene, part of me feels like he's still playing into this facade a little bit because his voice and cadence doesn't sound natural. And also we know at this moment he has been trying to perform for the estimation of the Ton specifically. Mm-hmm. But he tells her that she'll only find a husband when she's comfortable with herself. What is the one place in the world where you feel the most comfortable? It happens to be Sunday tea at Bridgerton House, which is no longer an option for her.
That's sad.
And Colin again tries to ask, what happened with you and Eloise? And she evades the question. She says, I gotta go.
Yeah.
While they're walking through this market, they walk past a number of statues and busts. And one of them happens to be the statue of Eros and Psyche, mm-hmm. which represents both Colin and Penelope. I love when Bridgerton just adds shit like that in the background.
Back to Will and Alice Mondrich. Alice Mondrich is visiting the Ton's modiste for the first time. And one of the reasons that we love like the Mondrich story is that we get to experience that world of the Ton and high society through the lens of like normal fucking people.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons that they've kind of kept, broadened, and elevated their story, because it's kind of like you're taking the viewer and putting them through the trial of becoming a member of society and how annoying it would be, honestly. Even though they were in a quote-unquote lower class, they had more freedom and less visibility to other people, and they were less accountable to people's judgment. Now that they are participating members of society, that they're part of the Ton, they're having a hard time dealing with the change of that. They own an estate, they have a staff, they have to adhere to these weird fucking rules. They have a very old school, like, head of the household staff, very similar to Mrs. Coulson when Daphne went to stay at whatever the fuck the Duke of Hastings estate is called. Cliveden. And it reminds you how this world really is a teeny tiny bubble. The vast majority of people living in that time did not live that way.
No, and they dig into this a little bit later on in a scene with Benedict, where Benedict pretty much explains to them, like, you know, there are a bunch of obscure rules. And he explains, like, they're all to kind of control and keep the marriage mart moving. Yeah. Once you're married, though,
do whatever the fuck
you have
want.
Kind of your liberties within your home. I also love that friendship with the Bridgerton brothers.
Yeah, I do love that. Also shopping at Madame Delacroix's shop are Eloise and Francesca, accompanied by Violet, Lady Bridgerton, who wants to make sure she dresses Francesca in such a way as to catch the Queen's eye.
For her to find her sparkle.
Here we see how different the approaches between Eloise and Francesca are when it comes to being out in society. Eloise avoids it. She thanks Francesca for taking the attention off of her yet again, the same way she was able to thank Daphne for being the first one to be out in society. Francesca is more direct. She just wants to get it over with.
Both to the same end, though, which is what I find interesting. They both want to avoid society.
Yeah.
Francesca's way of doing that is like, let me get this over with, do what I got to do, and that way I could go be in my house tranquila,
playing my piano forte.
Where Eloise is like mad and loud about it.
Yeah, honestly. And Eloise is fighting the whole way. Francesca's just keeping her head down.
You know, she actually says to Francesca, after thanking her for kind of splitting Violet's attentions away from Eloise, now that Francesca's also out, she might be able to delay dealing with suitors for at least another year.
Eloise is so wild for this.
Could this be a hint that maybe it'll skip a season before we get to Eloise's story? Or is she season 4?
Those of us who are familiar with Eloise's story know that she doesn't find her husband on the marriage mart.
Yeah, no,
she does a very indie punk rock way of becoming pen pals.
I love her story. It reminds me of You Got Mail.
Dog, just hearing you describe her story to me made me irate.
Oh, no. It's not great.
No.
Great. I like the premise of it.
Got it.
The trope behind it. While the ladies are shopping,
as we all know, bitches be shopping,
we get another lovely sibling scene of Benedict, Hyacinth, Gregory, and Colin. I love seeing Hyacinth and Gregory be a bigger part of the story this season. I love the Bridgerton sibling dynamic. They are so much fun when you see them in scenes together. I hope to continue to get more of that, and I really hope Bridgerton makes it to the point where we get to see their stories.
Something that I love is that the actors that play Hyacinth and Gregory are friends in real life, and that's just like, I don't know. You know, that makes me happy.
Your heart. Yep.
Like, they like hang out.
Love when people
that's
are
so
friends.
Freaking cute. I love when people are friends. Whatever. We see a Bridgerton footman come to fetch Colin. He has a guest. Turns out Colin has invited Penelope to the house so that they can continue with their lessons in a place where she's more comfortable, Bridgerton house. He pretty much has planned an entire scenario where they pretend they're at a ball and she has to pretend that he's a suitor and practice flirting on him. And it's very cute. Paola loves this trope. I don't know if I love this trope.
I love this trope.
Can I tell you a movie that you haven't seen that uses this trope? There is a movie from the 80s. I think it's John Hughes's last like teenager movie. It's called Some Kind of Wonderful. I think it's on Prime or HBO Max.
I've always wanted to see it.
I loved it. I watched it like last year.
Right.
It probably has the most emotionally mature male main character that I've ever seen in a movie, period. And he's supposed to be like 18. There's a scene in this movie where he and his best friend, who is a girl who is very in love with him and like doesn't know what to do with that, he's trying to get on a date with another girl. And he goes to his best friend and he's like, I don't know what to do. And his best friend's like, well, you're gonna need to kiss her. You should practice on me. Oh, and it's like a big scene where they have this like awesome makeout session.
I've seen this.
Have you really?
I've not seen this movie, but I've seen this.
Wait, have you
scene.
really?
Yes.
And the girl has like short blonde hair.
It's like iconic.
Oh, that's so funny. I had never seen it. I knew nothing about this movie truly before I found it on fucking HBO and watched it.
Yeah, I do love that fucking trope. Come on now. What were you expecting? Like, it's so obvious. It's so obvious and bad.
So
that
goofy.
It's so good. She confesses, like, I can't practice on you. That's embarrassing. I would be more embarrassed to practice with you than with a stranger. I already know you.
Completely understandable, Penelope. Very reasonable of you.
Because to him, he's like, you're going to be comfortable flirting with me. You know me. Nobody.
Not how that works.
You know, and he gets a little frustrated with her. He kind of looks down, puts down his glass in frustration because he's like, then how are we supposed to do this? Mm-hmm. She goes, deep inside, I can be clever and amusing, but somehow my character gets lost between my heart and my mouth. And I find myself saying the wrong thing, or more likely, nothing at all. I felt this in my heart, in my soul. So Colin tells her, like, okay, don't worry about saying the wrong or the right thing. Just imagine what you would say to me if I was your suitor.
Right.
And our girl doesn't even have to prep. She knew exactly what she would say to him. She locks eyes with him and tells him that his remarkably blue eyes shine even brighter when he is kind. And he's like taken aback. He has to take a drink of that lemonade again. Buddy, you're going to be hydrated by the end of this. And then they hear voices. And it's Eloise who has returned back from the Maldives early. And they don't get a chance to unpack whatever that little spark was. So he rushes Penelope to the study and asks her to wait there for the coast to be clear. If you see this scene, like he opens the door and she like runs under his arm. Like their height difference is so insane.
Because she is so petite.
She is very small and he's also a tall man. Yeah. So in the study, as she waits, she finds a few of Colin's things by a desk. She sees a jacket. Why did I think she was going to smell this jacket?
Oh, I thought she was too. And why not?
Maybe that's what I would have done.
And why not? Who's going to tell him? Not me.
She doesn't. She's respectable. She's more respectable than me.
Boo.
And she also notices on the desk there's a journal. Without really understanding what it is, she starts reading a few sentences that end up describing Paris and how beautiful the women there are. She steps away realizing that it's his intimate journal. But her nosy ass cannot stand it. She can't take it. She turns around, picks it up, and eagerly continues to read. And she reads a passage that says, "In those moments alone, as my fingers trace freckles from cheek to collarbone, or as I watch the way starlight dances across skin, I marvel at how one can feel such intimacy, but also such great distance." Mm-hmm. So this passage really explains a lot of what we've kind of been seeing him struggle with. Mm-hmm. When he's flirting with these women or when he goes to the brothel, like there's fun and beauty and pleasure in it. There's no genuine connection with anyone, which apparently, based on this passage, is something he cares about and something that he's seeking. Right. In the wrong places, though. Of course, right as she's reading this, Colin walks in. He gets mad.
He does. I was a little surprised by how upset he got.
In the book, though, he gets very upset. Yeah. He gets too upset for my comfort in the book. But I do like when you kind of see that turn in his personality because you don't expect it from him. Mm-hmm. And it kind of comes off like, oh, how angry can you go?
Oh, my God.
Upset, he goes to grab the book off the desk and he knocks over a lantern that ends up crashing and breaking on the floor. As he's picking up the glass pieces, he cuts his hands. Mm-hmm. And Penelope insists on bandaging this wound. She grabs a handkerchief from the table and she starts to wrap his hand. And he's very intent on her fingers as she wraps his hand. And something starts to simmer here as they share another gaze. And she tells him how great his writing is while he's holding his hand in hers. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's charmed her in this moment. I feel like she's charmed him in this moment.
Colin's a real words of affirmation guy. He loves when people tell him he's cool and good and doing a good job. He loves it.
You're such a good boy.
Woo.
Come on.
I could go in so many directions.
Walk him. Tell him where he eats. Tell him when he drinks.
Not walk him.
Rub his belly after. That's what he wants. That's what he wants.
Walk him like a dog.
He pulls away. They decide to end their lesson for the day, not before he makes sure that she's going to be at the ball that evening. As she walks out, he looks down at his journal and realizes that the passage that she read was kind of racy. Because she reads that, isn't really affected by it, and then continues to compliment him on his writing. Mm-hmm. As Penn tries to sneak out of the house, Eloise spots her, but turns away without a word.
In the carriage, on the way to the ball that night, Eloise is riding with Colin and expresses that she doesn't wish for Penelope to be friendless, that he might be all Penelope has. Please, I know that you guys are friends and that's fine. Don't bring her around the house. I just don't want to see her. It's too weird. But she does ask how Penelope is doing. So girl, which is it? Is it too weird or do you want to know how she's doing?
She's torn. I think she cares about her friend, but she's not ready to forgive her.
And I also think Penelope, there's an element where Eloise is like, are we both as broken up about our friendship? Am I alone in how I feel?
Yeah, right? Like when she asks him, well, how is she doing? Mm-hmm. Is she despondent? Is she sad? It's almost like she wants confirmation that she's as sad as she is, maybe.
It's also kind of a confirmation that the friendship means the same to them both. Colin lets her know, like, dude, Penelope's doing great. Like, she's trying to find a
She's doing
husband.
great. Actually, she's not sad at all.
She's trying to find a husband. She's got a bunch of new dresses.
No.
I don't know if you saw her, but she's looking good. Eloise is annoyed and surprised. Colin reminds us of something Eloise said earlier. Perhaps she has changed. Penelope has changed. He comments that he's helping Penelope in her search for a husband, and Eloise points out, like, yo, chill, because that is, like, a little scandalous. So he just says, it's not scandalous if you don't fucking tell anybody. So keep that trap shut. Once they're at the ball,
tag yourself. I'm Mr. Finch sending my wife Nadhya for pastries.
It's so fucking funny. Portia is the worst, and she tells Mr. Finch that if he savored his wife as much as he did pastries, she would be with child by now. Girl,
Savage.
that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
Savage.
And the dynamic between Finch and Mr. Dankworth is also pretty funny. I mean,
It's so
they're both
funny.
just kind of like, "Ugh, she's scary."
I'm actually like not mad at this Featherington like side plot of like the husbands, because I love the energy that they bring. They're so goofy and funny, but like charming. And Mr. Dankworth is just like, oh, I think of Philippa as a bonbon. And he's just like happy to be there.
Literally. So freaking goofy. It does seem
Is
like
it
they're both
Philippa?
obsessed with their wives, as they should be. So who's walking around this ballroom seeking out Penelope? Of course it's Colin. Penelope once again apologizes for reading his journal, but admires how well it was written, asks if he would let her read more of his writing. He says he'll think about it if she speaks to at least one lord. Once again, it's like she's affirming him, and it's like if there's any way to wear Colin down, it's through affirmation and like encouragement. And he points out someone named Lord Basilio.
So this is one of those instances where the show gave the actors agency in how they were going to identify. They let this actor of Filipino descent decide what his last name would be, and he landed on Basilio, which is a very popular Filipino last name.
I did not know that. That's so cool.
I love that shit, man.
So she feels self-conscious and intimidated because she's like, yo, Lord Basilio's a Viscount. And Colin's like, and you are Penelope Featherington. Do not forget that.
I love that. First of all, to him, what are you ashamed of? You're Penelope Featherington. You're charming, smart, funny.
I love that. That is very sweet.
That encouragement that she gives to him, he's trying to do that for her as well.
She goes over, tries to flirt with Lord Basilio. It's a goddamn mess, y'all. She says something about life being short, and he bursts into tears because his horse just died.
Then why are you at the ball,
I know.
sir?
He's grieving his horse. He's in mourning.
You're grieving. Stay home.
When Colin asks how it goes and learns that Lord Basilio's horse just died, he can't help but laugh and make fun of her, and they both just get the giggles and start laughing, which is
He's
so
like, well,
cute.
let's gallop along. He's such an ass.
Let's gallop on. Saddle up. Like, it's so funny. We see Cressida and Eloise also at this ball where Eloise is hating on this entire interaction between Colin and Penelope from the next room. Cressida notices Eloise's discomfort and encourages her to pretend that Penelope is dead. Girl, what? Who did this to you? We learn it was her mom. Eloise confides in Cressida that Colin is helping Penelope look for a husband. Cressida doesn't have a great track record, but we are learning that she wants to be a really good friend to Eloise, and she's kind of turning over a new leaf with that. Eloise engages in some dumb fuckery at this part, says that shit loud, and doesn't really keep in mind that there are other bitches listening to the shit they're saying. Girl, shit ain't no secret when you got girls eavesdropping.
But she's her. I think she's her in the
Yes.
moment, because she does say to her, we plan to be spinsters together.
Eloise steps away from this group of debutantes, and the rest of the girls look to Cressida to share some hot goss. Mind you, they've already been overheard. And much to the viewer's surprise, Cressida says she can't think of anything and walks away.
Here's where I start giving her credit.
Absolutely.
Here's where I'm like, okay, she is trying to change.
She really is trying to be a good friend to Eloise. And this is one of those moments where I'm like, her feelings for Eloise feel so intense. Like her friendship feelings for Eloise feel intense.
At this point, not yet. But yes, it does come up later where I'm like, oh, there might be something there for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it might just be the fact that she doesn't have a lot of good female connections.
Yeah, for sure. In this ball, we see the queen searching for her sparkle. The newest Bridgerton debutante, Francesca, is being introduced to a lord who loves music, ? She gets turned off when she realizes that he would rather talk about salacious rumors than the actual music theory, which is the only thing Francesca wants to talk about because she's fun at parties. Violet shares with Lady Danbury that she feels apprehensive about pushing Francesca because, damn, like, clearly it didn't work with Eloise, and the events of last season are cautionary. But she feels like if she doesn't push Francesca, Francesca will never leave her comfort zone, also known as within 5 feet of a piano. Lady Danbury suggests the opposite. Let her shine in her comfort zone. That's why she's comfortable there. Mm-hmm. She sends Francesca off to another room to play the piano and unsubtly maneuvers the queen into walking past this room because we all know that the queen is a great lover of music. She sang an aria with Mozart.
She discovered Mozart himself.
Was very much enamored with musical talent. She hears Francesca playing very proficiently and applauds her confidence.
Brava.
Sparkling, one might say. And Lady Danbury is the muscle behind this. She is pulling strings. Like, there was one point in season 2 where the queen is like, why can I sense my strings being pulled? And it's like, bitch, because you're with Lady Danbury. That's what she do.
Yes.
It's what she be doing.
And the way she does it while making her feel that she's the one in control.
I respect it. So we see Penelope at this ball chatting up Lord Remington, who is the first eligible gentleman of the time that uses a mobility aid. My man is in a wheelchair. That's dope. Lord Remington is like a gossipy little bitch, and he loves Lady Whistledown. It's so cute. Colin takes notice of this. And in the background, what do we hear, baby? A classical rendition of Jealous by Nick Jonas. A bop.
Himself.
Unapologetic. Himself, Colin, singing the song. No, I'm joking.
Up until now, who's always standing with Penelope making her giggle at a ball? It's Colin. And now he's seeing her do that with somebody else. And I think he realized, like, oh, wait, hold up. I don't think I like that. Because the way that as soon as Lord Remington excuses himself, Colin walks up to her.
Hey, was he nice? Do you like him?
And he does this it's the subtlety in his face. He does this thing where he shifts his eyes when he's uncomfortable and asks, did you like him?
Maybe I did.
And she's like, yeah, I had a really nice time. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm sure he did too. It's all in the face. He's very subtle with his emotions. It reminds me of when we were talking about Greta Lee in past lives. It's so subtle, but it's there. You can see the shifts of emotion in the slightest ways, whether it's a flicker of the eye or clench of the jaw. I love the subtle ways he portrays his shifts in emotion.
As Colin and Penelope are talking, they start to hear whispers. And as they look around, everybody's fucking looking at them. Due to Eloise's loud fucking mouth, the Ton has learned that Colin is helping Penelope, the spinster, find a husband. And a lady has the nerve to ask, why would you help a spinster find a husband, especially someone who is so beyond the hope of success? Bitch! For the second time at the second ball, Penelope runs out of the ballroom to take a carriage home because she is, like, weeping. Eloise sees her and tries to run after her. I mean, a little bit in an unexpected moment. Colin stops Eloise and yells at her for being una chimosita and telling Cressida about the arrangement between Colin and Penelope. And he continues to question why she's even friends with Cressida instead of Penelope. Because of Cressida's reputation, the assumption is she's the one who fucking told everybody because she's a damn hater. When actually she didn't. She did nothing of the sort. Back at home, Penelope is in tears as she writes her next issue of Lady Whistledown. And now she has to mention this embarrassing scandal between her and Colin. The following day, Eloise confronts Cressida. I think they're like doing a promenade because she believes that she's the one who spread the secret. Cressida looks at Eloise and suggests that she should look into a mirror. Watch your reflection, bitch. Her indiscretion is why everyone knows the secret, and she should reflect and be decisive on her actual feelings toward Penelope. And Cressida's feelings are super hurt. Like, she gets tearful, she gets up and walks away because she's very frustrated. But she's unexpectedly self-aware and aware of Eloise at this point in time.
This scene was another tick for me for Cressida.
I know. I unfortunately am kind of hoping that Cressida gets what she wants this season. We cut to Penelope in her room. She sits at her bedroom window. Portia bursts in to yell at Penelope for being reckless and unreasonable. She cannot believe Penelope actually thought she could find a husband in her third year out. The disrespect of this, okay? And then to flip and try to console her by telling her an unmarried life isn't so bad. Men are a lot of trouble anyway. Okay, bitch, we all know you hated your husband. Like, chill.
You know, and here in 2024, we stand with
Yes,
Portia.
of course. It's not
You don't need a
2024,
man.
though.
But does she need to put her down in the
Would
process?
she even be a mother if she wasn't putting her daughter down?
Would she be a... No. Not the one she needs.
Would she even be anyone's mom if she didn't also insult her daughter and while trying to comfort her?
Not my mom.
Not my mom. It's gotta come with an insult. Otherwise,
It's somebody else.
woo. Ooh. She almost reaches out to touch her and then changes her mind because Portia is fucking incapable of offering any other type of comfort. Penelope cannot expect even the slightest bit of motherly affection from this woman.
It's this ignorance from her to not know who her daughter is and the things she's capable of. She doesn't know her.
She has no interest in knowing her.
She invests so little time in Penelope that she doesn't know her. She doesn't even know her personality, has no faith in her as a woman, as a person. And the thing that also gets me is that she's trying to persuade Penelope that she doesn't need a husband. But the whole reason why Penelope is so desperate for a husband at this
Is
time
to get the fuck out of her
is to
house.
escape her. If they didn't treat her the way that they did, she wouldn't feel the way that she does. But even so, why wouldn't she be deserving of finding a husband or somebody who cares for her? It's almost like Portia can't see that for Penelope, finding somebody who can care for her. It's infuriating.
I mean, and it's really insulting. How little do you think of your daughter that you don't think are capable of being loved by somebody else? That's fucking unhinged. Later that night, Penelope's still in the same spot, and her lady's maid, Ray, comes to tell her that she has a visitor. Ray, you are either the best paid lady's maid in all of Mayfair, or you are a real one down for the cause. Because Penelope walks out to the garden where Colin is waiting. Colin, at night, a man, the garden, Penelope alone, no chaperone. Ray leads her down there and promptly turns around and walks away. Bitch. He tells Penelope,
yeah.
I had to see how you were, and calls Whistledown beastly for writing about her. Because now Colin's like, I'm triple pissed, quadruple pissed, one might say, because it's Marina Thompson, Eloise, me, and now you. Oh, we're beefing. When I find Lady Whistledown, we're curb stomping her, okay? Penelope replies that it would have been suspicious if Lady Whistledown hadn't reported it. You fucked up. And that's gonna come
Sisters,
up. Absolutely, that's gonna come up.
Absolutely, this is a slip up.
Why would Colin think it's suspicious? From Colin's perspective, of course Lady Whistledown would find out. It's gossip being shared by the ton. Why would it be suspicious? You're being weird, Penelope. Shut up. She starts to echo some of the stuff that her mother was telling her earlier that day. And you can tell it's almost been like drilled into her to believe that she is unlikely to ever find a good relationship or a love match. Ay. And how could she have believed even briefly that she would have a chance at love? Colin tries to stop her from saying, such awful things about herself because he cares about her, because they're friends.
And also, he doesn't believe those things either.
But in her mind, she's done. She's a spinster. Her mother and everyone at that ball said so. No one's going to court her after that. Not even fucking Lord Remington, who seemed like a big sweetie. In voiceover, Lady Whistledown says, once hope is lost, a lady may become reckless. Penelope looks at Colin and, like, haltingly through breaths and very nervously asks him for a kiss. Because what does she have to lose? As far as she's aware, her marriage prospects are over. She just wants to experience a kiss. She's like, I'm going to be a spinster. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. Can I at least know what a fucking kiss feels like? And can it be from you, a person who, like, presumably cares about me at least a little bit?
Yeah, you're my friend. You've been helping me out this whole time. Just do me the solid.
And the dialogue in this scene is straight from the book. And they have this really funny back and forth where Penelope, she's spiraling. And she's spiraling. She's barely listening to anything Colin is saying. And she's like, I could die tomorrow and it would kill me if I've never been kissed. And Colin's like, you'd already be dead.
You'd already be dead.
What?
In the middle of this outburst, of this desperate moment of Pen, like, I actually chuckled.
And she adds, please, Colin. And he seems pretty helpless against her, so gently and sweetly and insistently asking.
So he steps in closer. And ladies, sisters, this is my Roman Empire.
Lord Jesus.
Because I've watched this scene maybe as many times as I've watched the carriage scene. He steps in closer and he goes to gently brush his fingers along the side of her face, under her jaw, and then tilt her chin to bring her face to his. Whew.
Stop it.
It's so romantic. And it just wasn't one kiss, ladies and gentlemen. He went back in for more. When they stop, he lingers near her face, not really ready to stop. And she looks down and says thank you and heads back inside, leaving this man mouth agape and confused in that garden. Oh my God. It was the best ending to this episode. I was so ready for this, and it happened, and it was beautiful. Loved it. Loved it.
We all know you did. Paola said, suggestion for the credit song, Mr. Brightside. You're wild. I'm coming out of my cage, and I've been doing just fine. Real ones will know that Paola and I really love The Killers.
How did you feel by this point of the show?
I think I triumphantly shouted at the screen.
Did you really?
I was watching it with my husband. I am deeply unserious.
What did Ryan... I know, because Ryan's been on this journey.
Oh, anytime they've been alone together, Ryan goes in his worst Cockney accent. A scandal!
Scandal?
Yes. A scandal! Like, the awful. That he kept doing that the whole time we were watching. He was like, they're alone together. They're alone together. A scandal!
They're not really alone together, though. She's always got Ray. It's just
Ray's just easy to pay off.
Ray's the MVP.
Yeah, she is.
I saw this and was like grinning.
That's on brand for you.
Grinning like a fool. And did I play it back? Yes, I played it back.
Oh, what? You?
Ooh, yeah. Favorite part? Do you have a favorite part?
It's the end of episode 2.
Yes, the end of episode 2. 100%.
I love when a man is confused by something he might want. I love it.
To me, well, I think end of episode 2, yes, the kiss in the garden. And the apology.
Obviously. Yes, that's true.
And I loved his apology. Because it was like he apologized for his past wrongs and I'm going to improve, and how can I be better for you? How can I win you back? It's not just, oh, I'm sorry I did that.
Which I do appreciate.
Sisters, tell us what your favorite pollen moment of these first 2 episodes was. And do you think Colin should have suffered more? Yes or no?
Yes.
Answer in our poll in our episode description.
Yes.
Let us know what you
Colin
think.
should have suffered more. Any other answer is wrong.
Oh my God.
I don't make the rules. Unless I do when it's my podcast. So
we're going to continue to recap episodes 3 and 4 on the next episode. Stay tuned.
Join us back. Join us back. Stay with us. Check up on us.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, please leave a review anywhere you get your podcasts. Come and find us on Instagram at SisFlixPodcast, or shoot us an email at sisflixpodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you think.